You good?
Yep.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Yes. Everybody good? Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council Workshop. Today is Tuesday, May the 10th, 2022. It is now 9 a.m., and we are in the community wing of City Hall. With that, I'd ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The clerk would call the roll, please.
Mayor Alfin.
Present.
Vice Mayor Bronchino.
Here.
Councilmember Danko.
Here.
Councilmember Finelli.
Present.
Councilmember Kloufis.
Present.
All members are present.
I would ask my fellow city council members to adjust their microphones for those people that might be listening virtually to make sure it's close. And let me just read in our description of the workshop for everyone listening. The council meets in workshops to be well informed of each item to be brought before the city council and to make the best determination on behalf of all city residents. City staff presents detailed information during the workshops and provides a summary background for each item, as well as any additional documents relative to the item. The city council can then have a meaningful, collaborative, healthy discussion on each item presented. This way, facts and knowledge can be obtained prior to the next business meeting, where City Council then makes the best determination in the interest of the citizens' health, safety, and welfare on each item. As we continue to grow as a collaborative council and follow all council meeting policies and procedures, I will always do my best to make sure that every City Council member has an opportunity to bring forth individual opinions. Our constituents are expecting council to communicate cohesively and with civility to serve our community. The workshops are a valuable tool to present and discuss our individual opinions on behalf of all residents and achieve these objectives. We may not agree with each other, but that is one advantage of the workshops, to evaluate all the information necessary in advance of a decision, a motion, and a vote at our next business meeting. I hope that we will all understand the purpose of these workshops, and I invite all opinions at all times on the dais. With that, I would like to open up the section of the agenda for public participation, and I will also read in the policy and procedures for public participation, which shall be held in accordance with Section 286.0114 Florida statutes and pursuant to the City Council's meeting policies and procedures. First, each speaker shall at the podium provide their name and may speak for up to 3 minutes. 2, the public may provide comments to the City Council relative to matters not on the agenda at the times indicated in this agenda. Following any comments from the public, there may be discussion by the City Council. 3, when addressing the City Council on specific enumerated agenda items, speakers shall A, direct all comments to the mayor, B, make their comments concise and to the point, C, not speak more than once on the same subject, and D, not by speech or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings or the peace of the City Council. E, obey the orders of the mayor or the City Council. And F, not make any irrelevant, impertinent, or slanderous comments while addressing the City Council, which pursuant to council rules shall be considered disorderly. 4, any person who becomes disorderly or who fails to confine his or her comments to the identified subject or business shall be cautioned by the mayor and thereafter must conclude his or her remarks on the subject within the remaining designated time limit. Any speaker failing to comply as cautioned shall be barred from making any additional comments during the meeting and may be removed as necessary for the remainder of the meeting. Now with that, just so we have a clear understanding of our policy, procedure, our custom for public participation and our workshop, I would open up the meeting for public comment at this time. So if the first speaker would approach, please, and just state your name for us for the record and proceed.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Celia Puglisi. I'm a resident of Palm Coast since 1991. I came here today just with two issues, asking for the mayor and the council help on this. In my last meeting, I think it was sometime last month, in the beginning, engineering manager, Mr. Carl Coate, when I asked him when they were gonna finish the Florida Park Drive calming construction, that they were still unfinished, the islands and everything that will be calming down the traffic, he told me in the beginning of the year or the end of last year that will be sometime in April. And April is gone by, May, nothing happened, but I see a lot, some of his new projects like a lake on the L section for drainage and the west study for west of Route 1 and all those expensive things, but little old Palm Coast needs that on Florida Park Drive. Mr. Mayor, another very serious thing that is happening here in Palm Coast. This has to do with our code enforcement department. They are wonderful. They're the best you could ever imagine, but they're subject to the Florida state. Last year in July, Tallahassee came up with this new request that when we file a complaint, the person affected by our complaint has the right to get in the files, get your address, get your name and all your information, and if they do that, most of the time is to harass, intimidate, or endanger the safety of that complainer. That have happened to me with no issues, right? Because I took care of it. I do not give in to intimidation. But what I think the city, and this is for our legal department, should do is this. When we file a complaint, we get into a form, whether it's phone, whether it's online, we have to put all our information there for everybody to be seeing, including ourselves, when we get online and see how is the status of the complaint. We complain because generally it's safety, value of our homes, or our quality of life that is threatened. So I will suggest to the city with the legal department to put on that ordinance that when a potential violator requests that information from us, which we don't know about them because we complain about an address, they need to fill the same form so we also know who is going to be after us. All right? This is also good if we have to go to court or if you have to call court enforcement, the law enforcement, they can see that individual's information. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. I'm Paula Lewis, and I live on Cottonwood Court. And it's come to my attention recently that Palm Coast has a zoning map for Airbnb or VRBO and the like. And I'd like to know where that's available, because when we moved to Palm Coast, we thought it was a nice neighborhood where we would feel comfortable and there wouldn't be a lot of transients. Recently, we've had a lot of turnover in the houses in our neighborhood, and they've become Airbnb and VRBO. And it's concerning because of safety issues. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Robin Mcdonald, Palm Coast. In the 6 years plus that I've lived in the city, I found that there is 2 places in this entire city that are extremely sacred to me. One is the church that I go to, and the other one's the firehouse. Those are the most sacred places in this city. And the reason why, you might ask why a firehouse is sacred, is because I was born and raised in a firehouse. And this coming Saturday, May 14th, something's gonna happen in this city that ain't never happened before. We're gonna have a tunnel to tower run. And I know what it's all about, probably the council does, but the people sitting at home listening may not know what it is. And we need all the support that we can get. 20 years ago, there was a firefighter named Stephen Stiller, and he was from Park Slope, Brooklyn. And he had just finished working that morning. He was on his way home when he heard the towers had been struck. He attempted to come back through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, but of course it had been closed. So he took all his protective gear, his bunker pants, his coat, and his helmet, and he ran 3.5 miles to the towers. He was last seen going into the towers, and to this day, his body has never been recovered. So every year, his family does this Tunnel to Tower Foundation, and it started off really small, because when I did it way back when, we had 30,000 people, 30,000 people. And I was pretty old at the time. And I'll never forget this if I live to be 100 years old. A guy came through on a golf cart halfway through the tunnel, and he said to me, "Hey, Pop, you want a ride?" I said, "Son, you didn't give Stephen Stiller a ride, you're not giving me." And I was the last one of 30,000 to finish. Well, Lord willing, I'm gonna do it this Saturday. And I'm gonna finish. And I've got a lot of motivation for doing it this year. And just so the public knows, the man that's sitting right there, the mayor, he's gonna do it with me. And I think that's pretty classy. So I'm just reaching out to everybody that if they're not doing anything Saturday, and even if they are, at least come, support, say hello, because I think it's a class act that the mayor of our city is gonna do this run. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Morning, Mayor, City Council. My name is Gene Dowd. I live in Palm Coast. First, I like to try to always remember to thank the employees of Palm Coast. They do an amazing job. But I also forget, because I was one, to thank all the military that served, have given all. Thank all law enforcement, fire, first aid, first responders. They keep us safe, and I thank them all. I would now like to specifically thank the city. This card really does work. I was here a couple weeks ago. I asked a question, in 48 hours or less, I had my response. So if you have a question, the city does respond, and I thank them for that. I also want to thank or apologize to the city. A couple weeks ago, I had it written down. No emotions, keep it in check. And I got emotional. And I made some comments at the end of my comments about recall, and that was inappropriate. I hate having to apologize, but I was wrong. I support the city's raise. I think it was necessary. I also think that it should be more than the school board. I think you gentlemen do an amazing job and have a lot, especially seeing they say we're one of the top 5 cities. I think you should bring that up and continue that process. Again, I know you voted on it. I'd like to thank the city attorney, because the reason I got emotional, the councilman that made the motion to amend talked about benefits and why we were all venting. She was doing her job and found out what benefits could be compensated for. So thank you to the city attorney. Last but not least, Mayor, the you had walked away a couple weeks ago, and I'd asked about what does it mean partnership, because the vice mayor asked, what does it mean partnership? And 2 weeks ago, Thursday, I got this about the agenda for the State of the State. And it states that partnership with the Regional Chamber of Commerce. What does that mean? And I respect the city mayor for not going to that, because that question was never answered. I was gonna fill this out, but I don't think the city should be put on the spot, Mayor. You cut off the question. You should answer the question to the city vice mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, I'm Dan Bryant, and I live on Crossgate Court. And I just wanted to thank the mayor for last Wednesday. He joined myself and several other people with the Cimarron Safety Committee. Our concern is the heavy traffic and the absence of pedestrian or bicycle safety conveyance along Cimarron. It's only a 1.2 mile stretch, but now we've got 3,900 vehicles per day, and I think, as the mayor saw, they're obviously not distributed evenly over the 24-hour period. A lot of things get concentrated right after lunchtime when a lot of the tradesmen and the heavy equipment's moving through. And it is kind of a very spooky place to be on the side of the road. So I really do appreciate you coming out. We're looking forward to the community meeting on this, which should be in several weeks, I'm told. And I simply ask that please let us know a little bit ahead of time so we can inform the members of our community. Thank you much.
We thank you for your comment. Are there any other in attendance that would like to make public comment to City Council at this time? Seeing none, I'll close public comment at this time, and if I could, I'll ask City Manager, there is a question about the term partnership. Can you help us with that in the information that was sent out?
Yes, Mayor, and also I'll ask possibly our staff to come up to elaborate as well. So I'll start with the term partnership as referenced in the newsletter. We work cooperatively with with organizing this event, and that is the state of the city, making sure that we included stakeholders of value in those planning exercises leading up to the event, which went over many, many months. And so we viewed that as collaboration and a partnership. There was clear lines between any kind of obligations. Reservations was done separately from our event. Specifically, the State of the City event was in a separate venue, just as an impression of positivity and a lot of the successes going here in the City of Palm Coast. Those events happened sequentially that day, but the partnership was more in the collaboration, if that's helpful, Mayor. And Brittany, if you have anything to add specifically to that, our amazing communications team really worked tirelessly on this, and our Park and Rec staff really made this a success on behalf of the city's portion of the event, and I'll just tend to give it over to Brittany. Thank you, Brittany.
Sure. So I would echo what Ms. Bevan said. It took a lot of planning to go into this, and it felt like it would be helpful to have another entity that could help us get the word out and to plan a successful event. So throughout the entire city, we had a lot of departments that aided in that, and the chamber had an event that occurred afterwards. So we worked together, but it was definitely clearly two different events. Our event was completely free, open to the public, live streamed on our social channels, and their event was afterwards in the same building but a different room.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Kershaw. Thank you, City Manager. Any other comments now from City Council?
Mr. McDonald, my dear friend, how do I understand you? Tunnels to towers. When that happened, I was in Newark, New Jersey as a detective, and soon after, 9:30, 10 o'clock, we all got a call from our director asking us who would volunteer to go work on those towers. Let it be known, I worked 4 days in a row at the towers. Removal of bodies, passing food, you name it, I did it. Those were the 4 worst days of my life. But they're probably one of the 4 most proud days of my life. So I understand you. As to the chamber and the word partnership, with all due respect, partnerships are partnerships. The only thing out of this, remember one thing, the chamber was there and made money out of it. Thank you.
I would just like to add that I will see you on Saturday, Mr. McDonald. I hadn't signed up until I saw the sign on my way in this morning, but yep, I'll see you guys there.
Sorry, unfortunately, I'll not be able to be here, and I'll tell you in a little bit why.
You'll be there in spirit. That's
Why,
what counts.
Yes,
Okay.
I will. Yes, I
Okay.
will.
Other comments by City Council on public comment today? Very good. Okay.
Mr. McDonald, I want to let you know, I was on the fence about running it. I'll be there on Saturday. I'll see you there.
Very good. Okay, with that, we'll move to our section F on the agenda this morning, which is our presentations. And I guess if council would read.
Well, there's nothing to read into
Yeah,
the record.
okay.
So this, I'm going to hand
So-
it over to the city clerk.
So the first presentation will be a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with the Flagler County Supervisor of Elections.
Mayor, we have the board applicant interviews for the vacancy.
I
on
was
the-
so excited to introduce our Supervisor of Elections, I jumped the gun, so let's back up a little bit. And I apologize. Will the city clerk make the,
Yeah, she'll be doing a presentation
presentation.
today and then tell
Good
you.
morning, Mayor and City Council. Before we get to the interviews for the BEAC candidates, Ms. Jordan Myers would like to provide council with some positive accomplishments of the BEAC, what the BEAC is responsible for and what it is not. The interviews will be similar to that of our previous appointment of Councilmember Finelli. The applicants will be requested to step out, and staff will be bringing in each applicant. The applicant will have 3 minutes to present to City Council why they would like to be part of the BEAC. So with that, Ms. Jordan Myers.
Morning, Mayor, City Council members. So the BEAC stands for the Beautification and Environmental Advisory Committee, which I am the staff liaison for. We meet I think it's the 3rd Thursday of every month, except for December and November. So in 2006, the City Council approved and created the BEAC. The committee identifies and makes recommendations to the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board on items such as beautification, scenic beauty, natural resources, conservation, and aesthetic enhancements. And then these are straight from their ordinance. Environmental protection and other related matters. Evaluate and consider activities, methods, projects, and programs that could be implemented within the city that relate to matters considered by the committee. Recommend and/or review and approve applications for beautification awards, green or energy conservation efforts, art pieces, and naming of public facilities. And staff-initiated proposed changes to the Unified Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan amendments involving the BEAC area of review. So that's some of the art and public places that the BEAC has been involved with over the years. Recently completed projects as influenced by the BEAC is the public naming of facilities, which the City Council, I believe, was involved with, the Shirley Chisholm Trail and the Doug Berryhill Field number 6 at Indian Trail Sports Complex. Our designation as a Monarch City, USA. Art and public places, which we showed you, and they've recently proposed some revisions to our Green Building Incentive Program that hopefully will increase participation in that program. These are a few other pictures. That first picture is actually the rain garden out in back of City Hall. And then you can see the Monarch City sign that shares the post with our Tree City USA signs. A few things that the BEAC does not do. They do not make recommendations for site plans or plats or any other development related projects. And they do not initiate their own changes to the Land Development Code or Comprehensive Plan. They may make recommendations on staff-initiated ones under their purview, landscape, environmental, things of that nature. These are our current applicants for today that you will be interviewing. There is an asterisk by Mr. Jeffrey Seib. He has been on the BEAC since 2014, so he has completed 2 consecutive terms of 4 years each, and as such would need a 4/5 vote to be reappointed to the committee.
May I ask a question in your presentation? Just going back a little bit before we get to the interview process. So if this committee is making recommendations to the PLDRB, my assumption is that it falls under the sunshine laws.
Yes.
And therefore, discussion amongst members can only be held in publicly noticed meetings. And I assume that that would be part of the process for interviewees and eventually applicants or appointees to be counseled or schooled on.
Yes. Our first meeting will be a training for the committee members. And that's actually the end of our presentation. Any questions?
Yeah, I would just start by saying, so this is one of those little heralded committees that doesn't receive as much recognition as we might want them to, but clearly we throw around the word quality of life, amenities, and a lot of things as to why we chose to move and live here in our beautiful city of Palm Coast. It's those things on the list and the hundreds of others that were not on your list in the slide, which really make this a very special, very unique city in the best county, in the best state in the country.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to add, I hope my colleagues don't feel bad that most of the people that applied are from my district. So don't feel bad. I think I got plenty of people in
You
my
have the
district.
best shot at good signs, right?
So Mayor, at this time, if the applicants would join Allison and Mr. Brandon, you're the first applicant, as we go in alphabetical order, if you could take the podium, please.
Since I'm the first one, do I leave?
No, come to the podium. Mayor, each applicant will have 3 minutes to provide why they are interested in the board, and we do have the timer.
Very good. General comments, so please speak freely about your interest in the appointment to City Council and start when you're ready.
Okay, my name is Robert Brannon. I live in the W section. I purchased my lot in '03 and moved here in '07. And the reason my wife and I really chose Palm Coast was the general appearance that you get of the city, at least back in those days. And so it would be my desire, excuse me, to help continue that appearance that I like about the city. If you're looking for somebody who has education, degrees, I don't have it. I am a college graduate, worked for 37 and a half years with E.I. DuPont Chemical Company. Some of the things that I did during those years, I was responsible for multi-million-dollar chemical plants. If you look at a refinery, that's what I did. The last 10 years of my life, or my working life, was really outside of this country. And one of the jobs was a greenfield job, and it was the only one that I ever worked on was a greenfield. One of my responsibilities was selecting a landscape contractor and making sure that we provided the correct trees and shrubs to for that facility. The other thing that I did throughout my career, I was responsible for the design of these chemical plants, which included, I had to comply with EPA, OSHA, and company standards that would meet any environmental regulation. Even though we were building outside of the country, all of those plants complied with U.S. regulations. So I am familiar with applying regulations, codes to the area. So, like I said, I don't have any specific education in this field, but I really think I can bring something to the board as just an observer of good things about what I see in Palm Coast.
Thank you for your comment. Jordan, just a question. Each of the candidates or applicants has been made aware of the time commitment. I'm not sure, did you discuss that?
Yes, it was part of the application process.
So my only question is, so you're familiar with what we think will be the schedule of meetings and that fits your schedule?
Yes.
Okay. Are there other questions for the applicant at this time?
Just one question, sir. Good morning, and thank you for applying. You said in your application that you'll offer solutions to the planning board and land development and council. Can you just name one, please? One solution that you would be offering, if you can.
I don't know what the issues are. I mean, I have to admit that presentation was one that I became more familiar with the type of things that come before the board. So
Thank you for being sincere,
I really
sir.
can't offer a
Thank you for being
possible.
sincere.
Very good. Okay. Anyone?
What do you love the most about our city?
What do I love about it?
What do you love the most about our city?
I love the appearance of the city. I mean, it's you don't go to many other cities and see the setback of our businesses from right up being on the streets. So the trees and the shrubs. I bought my lot in '03, moved here in '07. Since then, I have purchased 3 lots adjacent to my property that were wooded and will stay wooded for the protection of animals, birds. That's what I liked about Palm Coast.
Excellent.
Thank you.
If I may,
Thank you.
I just have one question. I think I'm going to ask this to all candidates, but I believe I already heard your answer. But your work history, is there anything specifically that you think may prepare you for this type of position? And I believe I heard the answer when we were talking about your contractual agreements to bring in the right kind of shrubbery and trees. But I'm just going to ask this kind of plain question to all the candidates.
I'm sorry, I really don't know.
Sure. What part of your background makes you specifically qualified to contribute positively to the board? I think you had already answered it, but I'm going to ask this to all candidates. I don't want to assume your answer.
Well, I like to be involved. I've been deeply involved since coming to Florida, Palm Coast specifically. I have volunteered for AARP free tax service for the last 11 years. I have volunteered for Palm Coast Code Board. I was on that a few years ago. I also volunteered for the volunteer fire department for a number of years. So I like to be involved and support the local community, or the local government, I guess I should say.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your service to your local community. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments? Very good. Thank you very much for your for appearing today. Thank you.
Okay.
Jordan, there's the liaison, the structure of the committee. There would be a chair self-appointed amongst the committee members,
Yes,
and then
there's a chair
how
and
does
vice
the
chair.
liaison work with PLDRB?
So what I do is I work with the committee members and chair of the committee and the vice chair, and we bring together presentations such as, I'll use the Green Building Incentive Program as an example. We worked on that project and the revisions to that program for a couple months, and then we brought together the presentation, took it to planning board, and actually Mr. Saib, who was the chairperson of the BEAC, presented that to planning board. But we did that over a period of months working on that.
So the rest of my question is, do the members of the BEAC, do they also attend the DRB meeting.
They did all come to the PLDRB.
They come to that, and then there's a spokesperson that presents to,
Yes.
to the PL. Very good, thank
Yes.
you. Good morning.
Good morning. Is this, am I good?
You are, yes. Please introduce yourself, and we have a clock for 3 minutes to tell us who you are.
Great. So my name is Sabrina Rinaldi. Live in District 4. I was born in Syracuse, New York. I've spent most of my life here in Palm Coast. Sorry, am I close enough to the mic? I feel so far away. I was actually one of the first students ever enrolled in our local virtual school program and the first ever graduate from high school completely online. From there, I went to Daytona State, kept it local, and I've worked in construction and development here in Flagler and the surrounding counties since. And yeah, what questions do you guys have for me?
Very good. A question for the applicant?
What do you love the most about the city of Palm Coast?
You know, having lived here most of my life, I feel that I've had a front row seat to the incredible success and growth that we've had as a city, and it's been something that I've really admired. We've been able to keep it such a beautiful place to live, and it's always something that I've really wanted to be a part of. And I feel now at this point in my life, with my acquired skills and my experience, I can really offer and have a positive impact on a committee like this. Having worked in construction and development, frankly, my job was being a direct liaison between residents and developers, and keeping the communities that we built beautiful and holding them to the standard that we promised our residents they would be when they moved in. So I feel like that could contribute greatly to a committee like this.
And I know you've answered this question on the application, but just tell us your willingness to commit to the scheduled meetings and the PLDRB meetings when necessary.
Definitely, thank you, Mayor. And just to, off of that, the first thing that I'd like to say is the original meeting that this appointment was supposed to happen was on April 19th. And out of all 8 applicants, I was the only one in attendance. So I think that alone speaks volumes on the dedication and commitment to the committee and the city.
Just
Question?
A quick question. In your application, you said, I respect the beauty of this area and understand how development is impacting our beautiful ordinances.
Sure.
Could you just elaborate a little more? What do you mean by this?
Sure. I mean, when you have a city like this that's constantly growing and developing, it can go one of 2 ways. It can either decline the city or make it a better place to be. And I think that development like this, as far as building goes, I think the city has done a really good job of keeping it a nice and beautiful place for the residents to live while this is going on. And I believe that that's something that the Beautification Committee could have a direct hand in, as just maintaining its beauty and its simplicity while we continue to grow.
Thank you.
Sure.
You want to, okay.
I was going to ask my standard question to all applicants. Your work history, how does that make you qualified for the board?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. How your work history makes you qualified for the board?
Sure. Like I said, working in development, I have firsthand experience, again, working with developers and residents and hearing both sides and keeping both people happy. And I believe that I could bring that experience and that skill set to the city and really take advice and word from the residents and apply that to the beautification of the city and working with the planning board and council.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much for appearing today.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Take care.
Mayor, City Council, we're going to jump back to one applicant, Charles Doak. Unfortunately, due to a prior work commitment, he was unable to attend, but we have his letter of interest that I'd like to read into the record
Please.
on his behalf. I would like to thank the City Council and the BEAC administrators for the opportunity to serve our great city in an advisory capacity with membership on the BEAC. According to the latest U.S. Census, Flagler County's population grew 20.3% between 2010 and 2019 to 115,000 people, ranking the county as the 87th fastest growing in the nation. We need a committee that is dedicated to researching and presenting meaningful, sustainable recommendations to the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board about our comprehensive plan and land development code that benefit all the constituents of the county. City officials, administrators, existing families and businesses, new families and businesses, as well as vacationers and temporary residents. Our city will not continue to be one of the most prized places to live and play in Florida if we are not diligent in our application of how we allow our city's expansion to accommodate the continued influx of users to the city and county resources. It's those resources, some upgradable, some renewable, and others finite, that need to be balanced in our growth. Are our practices feasible, sustainable, or out of date? We need to educate, incentivize, and provide recognition to those individuals or businesses that rebuild or expand our city in the most beneficial ways. Thank you for your time and consideration. I welcome the opportunity to serve on the BEAC. Respectfully, Charles Doak.
Thank you for reading that in. Well, I guess we'll, can't ask questions. We'll move on to our next candidate.
Yep, our next candidate is Mr. Singh.
Good morning, and when you're ready, please introduce yourself and tell us what your interest is in the BEAC committee.
Sure. So my name is Kevin Singh. I'm a mathematics, computer science teacher at Flagler Palm Coast High School. And just a little bit of a background with myself. I actually moved here from northern Alabama about 2 years ago. Been in Palm Coast for about a year and a half. Love the city, love the community. And I've always been, from a young age, we've been fascinated with Tesla and the different technologies with electric vehicles. Matter of fact, I actually own a 2012 Nissan Leaf, the first production electric vehicle that was made. This year has been a challenging year, I think, for all educators, coming on the back end of the pandemic and different things. But it's been a great year. I actually, at the beginning of this year, got to meet a very competent young man by the name of Dylan Long. Some of you, I'm sure, know Dylan. He's in my IB computer science course that I teach. He came in about a week or two later at the first of the year and was wanting to take my course as a self-study. And we were supposed to have a 15-minute conversation after school to discuss different things with the class and how it was structured. And that 15-minute conversation turned into about a 3-hour conversation with about sustainability and electric vehicles and different things like that. With him, he actually invited me to Drive Electric Week in Orlando. We went there and was inspired by Orlando and the things that they're doing for their community on that sustainability front. And we together started a school club called Sustainable Flagler, which we are working on several different things with there. We're looking into electric school buses, potentially solar panels for the schools, composting, true recycling for different things. I don't know if many of you know, but recycling, only about 35% of the things that are getting recycled. Unfortunately, only 35% actually get recycled. So we have some ideas for that. I expect to have the FPC under the green school designation very, very soon. We're working through that and hope to have that pretty soon. Those of you may know too, we are been doing electric vehicle car shows. Nick Kalifas has participated in a few of those. First one we did was in December, had about 10 cars and about 40 people come. The one we just did in April had about 30 cars there and about 300 to 500 people come. And we look forward to future events there. So to answer the question more directly, why I want to be on the committee, I think it's time for some new ideas. This area is very fastly growing. Things are moving very quick. And with my background as a mathematician, also I've been in many leadership positions throughout. I'm already deeply connected to the school and to working towards those efforts, and working with our students and our youth, and I think I would be a very good fit.
Very good. Thank you for that introduction. Quick question. You mentioned a green designation for the Flagler schools. Can you just elaborate on that just briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a green schools designation for each school, so it'd be a school-by-school basis. And you have to meet a certain criteria. There's, I believe, 5 different breakdowns of like water conservation, energy conservation, and it's really just a matter of going through and checking a couple of boxes. So they'll have like 5 different things, like, do you track your water usage, do you track your electricity usage, and you go through and click those things out. And then one of the things is to have a green team, as they call it, and that would be us. And so we're just going through and making sure all those boxes are checked and proven.
So potentially, are these the underpinnings of our young students learning about how to conserve and beautify our city for the future?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it goes into all that, and of course, looking into the composting and as far as those kind of things go with the beautification part, and the students are driving everything. You know, I try to just to be a resource for them, to let them kind of drive all that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Even though Palm Coast is not nearly in need of a miracle when it comes to our beautification, a saint would probably help anyway.
Well, you know, my wife, my father-in-law, I should say, my wife's father, he's a preacher. So when I asked him to marry his daughter, I said, "Oh, you should be pretty happy. You know, your daughter's marrying a saint." So
That's good. Sorry, I got to keep it a little lighty.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
You said in your application, pushing for ideal solutions to modern problems of sustainability. Could you briefly, can you please elaborate?
Yeah,
Just briefly, please.
Sure. So there's a lot of things that need to be considered as this new front. Of course, we're looking at electric vehicle adoption and what that means as far as charging infrastructure and different things like that. More sustainable ways to do our transport, like for instance the school buses, and we're looking at potentially linking up with the sheriff's departments, maybe converting some of their fleet and stuff. We've got some studies and some research to show that. And of course, more importantly too, with the recycling thing, it's good to recycle and everything like that, but in the end, if the current processes that we currently have are only actually recycling 35%, then that's obviously a cause for concern. And some of my students and myself have got some ideas on how to kind of make that happen, but we got to kind of look into that and research.
Thank you. I want to leave some time for my colleagues.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
Okay. I don't really have any questions. I just want to thank you for your efforts and, no pun intended, energy into the sustainable efforts that you're leading with, through our school system, so thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you so much, too, for your participation.
Councilman?
What do you love the most about the city of Palm Coast?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot, right? I think in the short time I've been here, and of course being connected with the high school, the thing I love the most is the community. Because I come from, rural Alabama, things are kind of spaced out. It's real easy to fly under the radar and things, but I think at the school level and being involved with this club and doing more community outreach events like these electric car shows and Arbor Day we participated in last Saturday, it really just showed just how tight-knit this community is. And when you're in need, people step up, people help, and that's also part of why I'm wanting to be on this committee also, to do my part.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Not a problem. Thank you.
By the way, I love teachers.
Yeah.
I do.
Awesome. Thank you for your support.
The next candidate will be Mr. Jeffrey Seib.
And Virginia, just for City Council and for the benefit of the audience, so we'll do the interviews today, and then next Tuesday at our business meeting, we will make a selection of
5 candidates each.
5 applicants.
Yep,
Okay.
each council member and yourself will appoint 1 member.
Understood. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in this morning, and when you're ready, just introduce yourself.
Okay, good morning. I'm Jeffrey Seib. I want to thank the City Council for giving me the opportunity to appear here today to apply, or in my situation, reapply to stay a member of the BEAC. I have been a member for some time. At present, I serve as chairperson of the committee. The BEAC can provide advice and investigate many of the issues a growing city like ours must deal with. I first became acquainted with Palm Coast in the late 1970s when my parents retired here. I moved here from Gainesville in 1995. Palm Coast was not incorporated then, although Flagler County had established what they called the Palm Coast Service District, aiming to give residents a say in Palm Coast matters they created the Palm Coast Service District Advisory Council. I was a member of that council and had the honor to collaborate with many concerned residents. Among them were Dick Eggers, Jerry Full, Jim Holland, Ralph Carter, and Bill Venny. Because of my environmental background, I had the responsibility to work through tough environmental challenges. To know where we are going, we must know where we came from. This is the long view perspective I bring to the BEAC. As a current member of the BEAC, I've had the experience and understanding of what is involved in being a member of this committee. In addition, I have never missed a BEAC meeting. With my 35-year background of scientific research experience, I can quickly search, review, and analyze information and develop plans to evaluate subjects that come before the BEAC. As a member of the BEAC, I worked with the Planning Board and City staff to review and modernize the Comprehensive Plan Chapter 11, landscaping element. One of the finest experiences I had on the BEAC was working with the families of veterans that had succumbed to the terrible ravages of PTSD to encourage and assist them in the design and placement of the PTSD monument at Heroes Park. The world we face tomorrow will be different than today, and that requires examining many issues to be prepared what the future brings. Some of the issues that could be topics for the next series of BEAC meetings would be to continue work on making positive changes to the Green Building Incentive Program, so as to have an option of sustainability that will no doubt become more of a requirement as we realize a future where fossil fuels are of a lesser value than at present. The BEAC is collaborating with the group Sustainable Flagler. As the committee chairman, I have always reached out to the members for a consensus on the issues. And I would like to see the BEAC maintain a level of citizen autonomy in order to deal with beautification and environmental issues in the city that BEAC members feel is relevant. So
very good.
That is why I would hope to be.
Thank you very much, and I just want to thank you for the service that you have offered and given over your terms previously on the BEAC. So, are there questions for Mr. Saib from City Council?
Just actually, Mr. Saib, since 2014, you attended at least 70 to 80 meetings, easily.
Every meeting.
So it's 10 a year. So you figure about 70. It's correct. Okay.
I've never missed a meeting. I've always felt it was important to attend the meetings and give my input and
absolutely
work with the other committee members.
Due to the constraint of time, I'm going to ask you one question. Throughout all those meetings, all those years, what was the most important thing that you feel that this committee did?
Well, I think we moved the ball forward in many of the beautification and environmental issues. I would say that the climate change and sea level rise issue that is very important that I delivered the talk to the planning board on, and two talks actually, one right before the pandemic closures, and then another just recently where we made concrete suggestions. But in doing so, it was important, I felt, as the chairperson, to get everyone's input and to work with them and understand where they're coming from and see if we can work for a consensus for all of us to agree on the issues.
Thank you.
Councilman?
No, but I just would like to thank you for all the energy and time and effort that you've put into this board in the past, and I appreciate your participation in our community.
Well, thank you. As I said, I feel my work is not done, so that's why I am applying to be reappointed.
Councilman, any other comments?
Thank you for your service over these many years, and I just have one question for you.
Yes.
What do you love most about the city of Palm Coast?
Well, I would say that I love the way that it's set up, the way it's put out, the geography of the city where it's opened up, and I like the open spaces. I like the community. I like living here. It's not a big city, and it has not a big city feel to it. I lived in several big cities. I lived in Miami. I lived in near or outside of Orlando. And Gainesville, of course, it's a big city because there's 40,000 students that come into the town. And I like Palm Coast because it's a growing city and there's great opportunities for helping out and moving the place forward.
Very good. We thank you for your comments and appreciate your time this morning.
And that's it for me.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Our next candidate, Mr. Ronald Silvers, he contacted me yesterday. Unfortunately, he couldn't attend today due to an emergency family matter he had to attend out of state. But he did want me to let you know he sends his regrets for not being able to attend and that he is still very interested in the board.
Thank you. Next candidate.
Next candidate is Miss Mary Vasilevsky. And Mayor, I'm unsure of Mr. Wright if he is able to attend. I do know he is a working career man as well, so I'm not sure if he will be able to attend this morning.
It's not nearly as long a walk as it seems.
I just feel naked without my purse. You're like, what am I supposed to hold?
So please, at your pleasure, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your interest in the BEAC committee.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mary Vasilevsky. I live in Palm Coast. I've been here on and off since 1999. And I'm currently on the Flagler County Affordable Housing Advisory Committee as the Palm Coast representative / builder representative. Can you hear me if I talk like this? Okay. Yeah, so my background is environmental. Just in short, when I was in Palm Coast, when I was 15, actually Denise Bevan helped me back in the day when I was an awkward teenager. I started a recycling team at FPC for my high school project for the last couple years of my program. And we recycled over, I think it was like 10 tons over 2 years, mainly because we also developed a relationship with Sea Ray at the time that was still in business. They gave all the wood that even had just one scratch that they would have to throw away, and we developed a relationship with, I don't know if Mr. Huckleberry is still at FPC, but he was doing construction, so all of the wood went there, and then we recycled. We had a team of people recycling all over Palm Coast. So that started my little career when I was 15. And the city helped us develop a relationship with Waste Pro, which also helped us get recycling bins to different offices around the city to which we would go and recycle. But from there, I got my bachelor's in environmental science from University of Florida. And I led the student composting cooperative where we got to do different things of bioenergy, upcycling, just various environmental projects. And eventually I got my master's in sustainable development, and I worked across a lot of intercultural communications and environmental sustainability, but beyond that, and just sustainability in general, how humans and the environment interrelate. Now I'm back here. I work for Florida Green Construction. I'm on the committee for the Florida Green Building Coalition. It's a nonprofit that does green building standards across the state that are Florida specific. And yeah, I first learned, I knew about the committee, but I first thought about applying when someone from the city council that was at an affordable housing meeting, we were overlooking the local housing agreement that we had to send over to SHIP. And I noticed that the city of Palm Coast's green building incentive was on there. And I had to speak up because I work for a certified green builder, but the program hasn't really worked. So they said, why don't you join the committee, apply, and see what can happen. And the more I learned about it, the more I wanted to apply. And so thank you for your time for listening to me.
I hope this question is it's curiosity, but I hope it's relevant.
Yeah.
I want to know your experience at FPC, I think you said,
yeah,
in the recycling project. I mean, was that an inspiration that carried with you in your choice of major and your current, I'm just trying to get a feel for how far back these roots, pardon the pun, are planted.
Yeah, so I did that project because I started caring about the environment. My rebel stage when I was 13, my dad owned the green building company, and I was like, oh, my rebel stage, I'm gonna be anti-environmentalist when I was 13. And then when I started learning about what he was doing, and he was doing it for safe construction practices, and then I started learning about it, and then I realized I was very wrong, which is not something many 14, 15-year-olds will say. So that's a good thing about me. I admitted I was wrong. But then I started learning about it, and I got hooked. I started researching it and our relations with water, specifically clean air and respiratory health was something that I got very passionate about just because I was respiratorily challenged and I didn't know why. And you outgrow it eventually, but yeah, that just, everything kind of propelled it.
Very good, thank you for that. Councilman?
Just one quick question. By the way, good morning. Thank you for applying. Working for a construction company,
Yeah.
do you think that is positive or negative for this position?
I think that specifically me working for a certified green builder is positive because I know about better or more sustainable building practices and how to apply, just from the construction side, how to help create the green building incentive program to be more accessible for builders and to help motivate them, because there are some revisions on the program that I would love to propose, because just from our experience, it's been a tough program, and we've been building certified green since 2007. So I think in that frame, I could be helpful to develop that program to help builders also want to be in green building. But I also think it gives me a different lens because I was more on the environmental conservation side. So it gives me a different perspective now is, okay, we have to have development, but how do you do it in a sustainable way that's not going to detriment and jeopardize, 2 words in one, environmental sustainability and affordability for the community.
Thank you.
Yep. My question was going to be regarding your work history and how it positively impacted your view on how you can contribute, but I feel like that's been sufficiently answered over the last 2 questions, so thank you for application.
Councilman?
What do you love most about the city of Palm Coast?
Just one thing. Okay. The local spirit. It feels like it's a small town. It feels like a small town. It's getting bigger, but if you do need something, you can build a community here pretty quickly. So definitely the people and how friendly people genuinely are and want to build relationships here. That would be, number 2 would be the trails.
Very good.
I couldn't resist.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much for your comments this morning and taking the time to visit with us. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Mayor, City Council, that is all the applicants. They're going to be brought back in if you would like to say a few words to the candidates as a whole. And we'll let them know that the appointment will be made next week at the business meeting.
You're bringing them back in? Okay.
Yep.
This has tremendous Shark Tank undertones. Really bringing it back in.
It does, but what a spirited group. I'm delighted to have people come and have such an interest in serving, obviously. So welcome back, and thank you again, each of you, for not just taking the time to make your introductions and field questions from City Council, but I am sure that each of you gave some serious thought for some period of time. I know the process for you with the application started some number of weeks, if not longer, ago. So you've been at this for a while, and we appreciate that. We just commented on your way back in. It's very refreshing for this city council to see folks that are willing to step forward, to be engaged, to help construct and usher the vision for the future in, while maintaining and keeping our city the most beautiful city in Flagler County and the state of Florida. So thank you very much for that. Any final comments to our applicants from City Council?
Yes. Once again, thank you all for applying. Even though your position is not a position of power, but it's a position of importance. It's a position of importance. And like we go back to our friend, if I may, Abraham Lincoln, he said, nearly all men can stand adversity. But if you want to test a man's character, give them power. Today, those of you who are going to be chosen, not going to get power, but going to get importance. And just think about how important you're going to be for the people of Palm Coast. That's, please, the only thing I ask of you. Just think about it. And I'm so glad that I didn't notice any agenda behind what you applied for. That makes me feel real good.
And
Thank you.
And I'm sure Uncle Abe also meant women as well, not just men.
Oh, when I meant men, M-E-N.
Any final comments for our applicants today? Again, thank you very much, and I'm sure we will see you all around town, and love those smiles. Thank you.
I spoke with the city clerk today, and due to the fact that I'm not going to be here next week, unless I'm authorized by my colleagues to do it via Zoom, I think I have to declare today who my candidate is, and then as next week they'll be presented.
Well, if and I'm sure, let's get consensus real quick. I'm sure that Mr. Branchino's trip will not prevent him from joining us on Zoom, so I think it would be appropriate to hold your appointee until we do it all together. Is that okay with the clerk?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to attend in Zoom, because where I'm going to be at, it's going to be in such a retreat place, because I'm going for reasons of, health.
Is there an alternate other than Zoom? Is a phone call acceptable?
So, Mayor, he can make his suggested appointment today. It won't be voted on because we're at a workshop. And then when this is brought back up at the next meeting, then the appointment can be, discussed and voted on at that time.
Is that in line with City Council? Everybody's okay with that?
Yes.
Everybody's good? Okay.
Then I'll
Fire when ready, Gridley.
Yes, due to the fact that I like the word honesty, and we have so many people, Mr. Robert Braining, even though he's not in my district, is my choice for the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I just want to say, Councilman Branchino, thank you for picking someone from my district.
Very much for organizing all of this. We'll see you next Tuesday to finalize this. And just out of curiosity, when will the first meeting of the newly formed BEAC committee be?
That will be May 26th, and it will be a meeting.
This month?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you again, everyone. Moving down the agenda, now finally, we have a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with the Flagler County Supervisor of Elections Office, and we have with us today the Honorable Ms. Katie Lenhart, who is our Supervisor of Election, and I'm not going to make her speak today, but I have to say this. Our election process and supervision is second to none in the state of Florida, and I say that not just to say it, but I just recently came back from several days with the Florida League of Cities, where we talked about a great many issues, one of them being past, present, and future elections. And I can tell you the comments I heard should make us all very proud of how well managed and administered our local elections are here. So I won't make you even say a word, but okay.
Mayor, City Council, we are in full swing with the 2022 election.
Virginia, can I just read the resolution into the record first? This is item number F2 on the agenda, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving an interlocal agreement with the Flagler County Supervisor of Elections, authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. So Mayor, City Council, as I stated, we are in full swing for the 2022 election. Ms. Lenhart, our Supervisor of Elections, is here for any questions that we may have regarding the upcoming election. So the primary election is August 23rd. Early voting is August 13th through the 20th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There are 4 voting locations, not 3. The supervisor got approved also to include Flagler Beach as an early voting location. The general election is going to be November 8th, and the early voting for that is October 24th through November 5th, 10 to 6, at all those 4 locations as well. Vote by mail and absentee ballots are requested through the Flagler County Supervisor of Elections. You can contact them at their office, and the deadline to request an absentee mail-in ballot is August 13th, 2022. The costs associated with the City of Palm Coast election, because we are held concurrently with the county, state, and federal elections, the only charge that the supervisor applies to us would be if any city ballot or referenda creates a new ballot page. And those costs are based, the estimate is based off of last year's special election for the mayoral race. So that could be up to $40,000. The canvassing board schedule for both the primary election and the general election, the City of Palm Coast has assisted under the supervisor's direction and guidance with the canvassing of ballots at the canvassing meetings. So those are all of the meetings that are there. Included in this year's interlocal agreement will be that the City of Palm Coast staff will continue to assist. That saves on costs for not only the supervisor of elections, but then it also helps us because we are concurrently running those races. A timeline for the candidates for seats 2 and 4. They can open their campaign at any time. They do so by filling out a DSDE 9 appointment of campaign treasurer and designation depository and DSDE 84 statement of candidate election forms. Generally, well in advance are when the candidates will complete those forms. Then once they hand those forms in, they can begin the petition process. Petitions are due to the Supervisor of Elections office for verification at 10 cents per petition on May 16th. Seat 2 is 229 and seat 4 is 221 petitions. And it is always recommended that the candidate obtain 10% over that, so through verification process, some are eliminated. Is there any questions with regards to our interlocal agreement?
The only thing I would ask you to repeat is the Supervisor of Elections website, because there's a tremendous amount of information available there, and if you can't find the information you're looking for, I don't want to cross a constitutional office boundary here, but it's been my experience that if you go and visit the Supervisor of Elections office, they could not be more gracious in their greeting and their helpful attitude on any questions any resident may have with regard to voting.
Absolutely. The Supervisor of Election has been a wonderful help to me as well in conducting our city elections. Their phone number is 386-313-4170, and their website is flaglerelections.com.
City Council, any questions?
Just, Ms. Leonard, you have been a wealth of information. The few times I needed you, you were there. So, only one compliment. Keep on being the straight shooter you are. Don't sugarcoat anything. Do it the way you've been doing it. And thank you for your job.
Very good. Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we'll move now to item number 3, if council would read that into the record for us. Thank you.
Yes, this is a resolution concerning the statement of ethical campaign practices. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving a statement of ethical campaign practices, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date.
Mayor, City Council, this statement of ethical campaign practices was developed by our very own Katie Lenhart, Supervisor of Elections. She distributes this to her candidates. The statement is not required by election laws. However, it could foster the candidates to keep their campaigns positive and assist in promoting civility while encouraging citizen participation in the electoral process. I thought it would be good for our candidates as well, if council so chooses to adopt this, to be provided to all current candidates and all future City of Palm Coast candidates for City Council seats. The supervisor does present this form to her candidates, and it will be up to the candidate whether they choose to sign it. It's voluntary. They don't have to complete it. The city will not have any enforcement mechanisms by having them sign this form. If a candidate violates any election laws, a formal complaint would be submitted by a person to the Florida Elections Commission. The city would have no involvement in that complaint or not. This is just a fun way, if you will, to see if we can get more participation in our local elections on a great civility level. So the statement of campaign is available in each of these. They'll run their campaign to not criticize any opponent. They look to not condemn any appeal to prejudice on basis of race, religion, gender, age, national origin, political party, marital status, or physical disability. They won't publish or display or circulate any anonymous campaign literature, political advertisements, emails, websites, blogs, etc., social media, or permit any of their volunteers or members of their campaign to engage in any of that type of activity. They'll provide the campaign reports that accurately reflect the contributions and expenditures received. They will not permit any members or volunteers of their campaign organization to engage in activities designed to destroy or remove campaign signs lawfully displayed on public or private property. They will not permit the use of untruths or innuendos about an opponent's personal life. They will at all times tell the truth with complete documentation from legitimate, verifiable sources for any charges against their opponents and substantiate claims about their own record by using the same standards. They will not permit the use of campaign material that falsifies, distorts, or misrepresents facts, and that they recognize it is a duty to their country, state, their county, their city, that the responsibility for their own ethics outweigh any personal ambition for public office. They won't permit any member of their campaign to engage in these activities and will immediately and publicly repudiate the support of any other individual or group which resorts to the methods and tactics that they do condemn them. They will make every effort to ensure the members and their volunteers of their campaign are trained to campaign outside of that 150 feet zone from the polling place entrance in compliance with state law. They'll make every effort to ensure the members and volunteers of their campaign and organization are trained to practice civility at all times, especially while they are working at polling places in the City of Palm Coast and Flagler County.
So, Clerk, this is a very substantive and thorough statement of ethics. I guess it would only be my hope, and I truly believe that government starts at the local level at the municipality, and I would hope that this would find its way to float up through state and the federal government and where else it could go to. But I do have, so first of all, I am going to ask for consensus, but I am in support. But before that, I do have a question for council that does disturb me just a little bit. Will not permit seems to put an awfully heavy burden on a candidate who may have, followers and people. Does a candidate even have such a power to will not permit? I understand the intent, but
I think the intent is just to be, well, let's go back to what the clerk originally said. This is a voluntary statement.
No enforcement, okay.
There's no
I understand.
enforcement
Okay.
mechanism. So, yes, I will not permit is strong language, but there's not an enforcement mechanism for this. So you're basically just going upon the person's, that they're telling the truth, that they will work to not do that. I mean, I think this is a voluntary statement, but I also think that if there's problems with the language and you still feel strongly about trying to implement this, you could make some revisions to that language.
I appreciate that, and I'm not sure it's necessary because it's not enforceable. I do want to show my support, and this is the same document that I assume is being used throughout the county. And the only other question I have is, how will all of the residents of Flagler County become aware of this?
This would be part of the candidate handbook packet that I provide.
To candidates.
To candidates.
I guess my question really is, will the public at large become aware of this? Because it seems to me it's important enough that the general public should be aware of it.
Katie, are you doing any advertising with regards to distributing this? Thank you.
Good morning, Council. This has not yet been advertised. It is available on our website. There's been some interest in it from some members of the public who kind of wanted to see it, like you're saying, advertised a bit more. Right now, I'm kind of just focusing on the election dates. As we get a little bit closer, as we are now, in the month of June, to closer to candidate qualifying, I'm sure that it will, be getting a lot of attention. And I think that I will start to advertise it through our social media channels and also highlight that on the website so the public is aware that, our county candidates should, the majority of them do agree to this. It was something that started after the 2018 elections, so it was in place during the 2020 elections, and most of our candidates agree. And that way the public knows that there is a set of agreements that the candidates have decided to commit themselves to. As it's been mentioned, it's not enforceable, it's not part of law, but there is an ethical responsibility for our candidates here locally. I believe they should hold themselves to a higher standard. And as you said, maybe it will find its way up,
And certainly the press and the media will help you spread the word.
Okay, great. Yeah, any help with that? And thanks to the city for, adopting this potentially with your own candidates. I think it's something that's important to do that. And Virginia had the initiative to see that importance as well. So thanks to her.
Well, thank you very much for that. And again, I am supportive. Council, can you give me a consensus?
I'm actually opposed to this, Mr. Mayor, and the reason why is not the ethics or what it represents, but to me, this is the first step of overreaching from government into political campaigns. I mean, what comes next? Do we then make it enforceable? And then who decides what's an untruth? Do we get Joe Biden's Ministry of Untruths to come in and make a decision for us? This, to me, just seems, it's almost a sense that it could become a tool, whereas one candidate signs it, the other candidate, for various reasons, decides not to sign it, so one candidate holds it up in another candidate's face, although the other candidate may have a great reason for not signing it, some like the concern you mentioned. I don't think we need to do it. It's not enforceable. Everything in here that is required by law, like filling out your financial reports and not overstepping into that 150-foot area and stuff, I think is enforceable. I think the public gets to decide about a candidate and how they run their campaign, and they decide that when they cast their ballots, and I know you guys do a great job handling that here in Flagler County, and I'm grateful for it. But I think that this is something that's an extra piece of paperwork. It's not enforceable. But I could see we get to a point where, oh yeah, you're going to have to sign this. And I just think this is totally wrong in that direction.
Right.
And I would think that council could tell us there's you know, if we ever reach that point of forcing someone to sign this, we'd probably have a lot of legal issues on our hand.
Well, this, I mean.
Freedom
you
of
mean
speech
if
issues,
you
number one. And
force someone to sign this and then made it enforceable?
if we
Is
made
that
it
what the-
enforceable,
is that
right,
what the
we would have
question
a lot of
is?
legal problems as a result of
I mean,
that.
I would have to, that's something I'd have to look at to see, between state election law, which sets certain
Well,
requirements.
just the
that you have to
untruth
file.
aspect of this concerns me. Who
Well, I mean,
decides
there is-
what's true?
Yeah, there is language that
Yeah.
is more aspirational than an actual tailored
Yeah.
regulation that we
I
like to
just think this
see.
is a road we should not go down, and it's not necessary to go down this road. We have election laws that govern our elections, and they work quite fine.
All right, thank you for your comment. Councilman Finelli, any comment on the?
Ms. Linhart, so there are ethical practices that the state sets forth regarding campaigning, yes?
There are ethical standards for elected officials. For candidates, yes and no. There's nothing like this in state law, and to Mr. Danko's comments, this is not required by, there's no requirement in law for this type of paperwork. There's nothing in the law that requires an ethical statement to be signed. So there's, candidate qualifying is 99061 Florida statutes. It's very, very specific what has to be filed during that time period. So are there ethics that candidates could improve? Yes. Is this something that is leading its way into, being required? I mean, that will be a decision made by the state legislature. And in order to make that change, it would have to be a state law. This is just a set of agreements. And of course, it can be modified to meet your needs and whatever you think needs to be in a statement like this. But this is the one that we use for the county.
My other question would be, how would the citizens become aware of who signs and who refuses to sign?
Anybody who wants to ask. It's a public
It
record.
would just be public record
Correct.
request.
Councilman?
Hello.
Hi.
I guess not everybody was as lucky as I was when I ran for this office. I ran with another gentleman by the name John Tipton, and when I say the word gentleman, put gentleman on that, because he was a gentleman. And this type of agreements is something that we didn't need to sign anything. We actually spoke about it, and we kept our promises, and we went straight. And I don't know if you remember, we were probably one of the cleanest trend campaigns ever out there. But I see where you're going with this, because looking at the last two campaigns, oh my God. Oh my God. And then on the other hand, this is wishful thinking. And when I mean wishful thinking is because you know very well some of the candidates out there, and you could see right away, they're not gonna abide by any of this. When you say statement of ethical campaign, I would say statement of decency campaign. You should have had the word decency there, because some of us were not, are not, and will never be decent in a campaign. That's why we call them silly season. But thank you for doing this job, and I agree with a lot of the things you said there. Maybe there's a couple of things that we should change, and that I'm pretty sure that my colleagues will feel good about it. But the idea behind this, it's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman?
Sure, absolutely, and thank you for being here today. And I understand both positions, the fact that this is a non-enforceable agreement and that it could lead, it's a slippery slope type situation, and how it can continue to lead to things that are holding candidates to certain criteria. And then on the opposite side, as a candidate, as a potential future candidate, and as an elected official today, I understand where we're trying to go with this. And I was fortunate that I was in a campaign that also I agree that John Tipton was a total gentleman, and I experienced the same thing with individuals who ran against me. But I do see the value in having something like this available for people to sign, basically saying, kind of like pirate code, where, this is, we agreed to a certain set of criteria that at the end of the day, we're still political candidates a la pirates. But basically, if I'm willing to do these type of things, then if this person is willing, then I would expect them to kind of uphold this civil decency. And I support having the option to have something like this in place so that we can, say, hey, I'm agreeing to do these things, and hopefully my opposition is as well. And it's something that I could totally see if we ever move towards the fact that, or trying to implement some type of mechanism for enforcement would be very slippery. But I think in the current political realm, and hopefully this is more transparent, and I shouldn't say transparent, but more, it strikes new candidates who are entering the political realm, kind of giving them a baseline of like, hey, here are the things that candidates who have gotten through this process can tell you are not good ways to run a campaign, and it only leads to pain on both ends. And I think the community loses when you run campaigns that are analogous to a lot of these points that you've made here. So for those reasons, I think that this is adds value.
Okay, this comes back for a vote at City Council?
Yes, if
So
council.
let me start with this. Is there any desire or are there any suggestions to staff to alter the document at this time prior to the next meeting?
I would suggest you crumble it up and toss it in the garbage can.
Okay, that's one.
This is
Okay,
just a
okay.
dangerous, slippery slope we should not go down. It doesn't even bring into account all of the political PACs that basically run separate campaigns and the tactics that they use. I think this is a dangerous thing. I think it's up to the voters to decide, the public to decide. I liked Councilman Burkino's race, where, you know, he basically made a gentleman's agreement and they both kept it. I think the public recognizes things like that and they place value in it. But to have a candidate sign a piece of paper that's unenforceable, I think it's just
Okay,
foolish.
so no direction for staff. Direction for staff,
Yeah,
any,
so my thought would be, instead of maybe ethical campaign practices, maybe ethical campaign expectations, and then change that language to where it's, instead of "I will not permit," making that language, "I will make every effort to ensure that what I'm sharing is truthful," so that it's more or less that they're taking a pledge to run an ethical and fair campaign, because it is an unenforceable document. So
any
to say, "I will not
change?
permit."
I just think that, and I'm going to say this with all due respect, when we're talking about ethical, okay, and we even mention the word garbage with it, with all due respect, I don't think they should go together. Either we agree with it or not, but the word garbage with the work you did over here, it shouldn't go together. And I mean it with all due respect. Just agree to disagree. I think that...
So let me ask for a majority of consensus. So do we want to bring this back for a vote, yay or nay, at the next business meeting, or abandon it at this meeting? So
I would bring it back.
Is it possible that we just form consensus that we would support this without having to bring it back for a vote? I just hate that this would become like a thing at this point, you know what I mean?
Well, we can't vote today, so I can't really get there.
I agree with Councilman Clufus, and I just, to my friend Eddie Burkino, I just want to say, I didn't mean to say ethics were garbage. What I meant to say was this effort and this slippery slope was what concerned me. The ethics part of it, again, I appreciate, and, you know, we all hope each candidate runs an ethical campaign, as you did. So I didn't mean to throw that in there and make that a comparison.
Thank
But
you.
I agree with what Councilman Clufus, we can agree that there should be some ethics involved, and we would hope our candidates would do it, but I don't think we need
So,
to.
Councilman Finelli, a comment? I have a comment.
I would be okay with bringing it back for a vote.
Okay.
Just,
And-
Mr. Mayor, just one quick question. From what you heard here, is there anything that you feel that you should change here to, you know, help us, help you in this? If there's anything, maybe it will also help some of our people behind the dais as to, you know, what could make it consensual amongst us.
Well, I think Councilman Finelli had a good idea, making it just not the word "I," removing that first person from it, and making it more of a statement of agreements to, you know, I will make every effort to, and then list them out. I mean, or you can remove some that you feel are more offensive or whatnot. But, you know, that would be a first step,
So
maybe.
let me just try this. Counselor, if we were, it wouldn't be a proclamation, of course, but if we, as a city council, were to make a statement that we encourage, you know, the ethical behavior of candidates, and that city council and the city of Palm Coast, therefore, supports that effort, it gets us away from the slippery slope a little bit. It makes it very clear that what we expect and what our anticipation is that all candidates will, you know, buck up and run the elections that the campaigns that you have referenced here. I think maybe at the next meeting, we could make a statement like that? Counselor's looking at me cross-eyed, okay. Help me with that.
You can do that. It's at your pleasure. I mean,
Yes.
there's nothing legal and
Right,
really
so
involved in
let's-
this.
let's-
So if you want to direct the clerk to bring it back in a different
So
manner.
I will direct the clerk to work with the supervisor to prepare a proclamation-type statement that would encapsulate the theme of ethical campaigning.
Mr. Mayor, are you suggesting instead of this as a signed form, we do a proclamation supporting, hoping, wishing that all candidates run an
Correct.
ethical?
That's correct.
I would be fully in favor
Okay.
of that. Fully.
Mr. Mayor, is that something that each candidate will receive a copy of upon
Well, it'll be a
filing?
public record if we spake it from here, so yes, I mean, they would have availability. Does that get us there? Yep. Okay.
Would you like this included in the candidate handbooks that are provided without any signature?
So I think we'd have to agree on it here first, and then yes, assuming that we all agree on it, then it would become a part of that document, yes.
You're talking about a proclamation being included, not a form to sign.
Let me reel back in proclamation. It's really a statement. A statement, yes.
Just a statement that goes with the packet that
Correct.
each can, that would be fine.
Because what I'm really hoping for here is that we have unanimity amongst city council, that we are able to agree, all of us unanimously, that this is the way campaigning should roll forward. Okay?
Absolutely, it's the
Very
best, in the
good.
best public interest.
Very good. All right, I think that does it. Thank you very much for being here. I'm glad you were here to answer our questions.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Moving down the agenda, we are, if council would read in the next, no, let's wait.
Nothing for me
Nothing,
to
it's a
read,
presentation,
but this
so
is going to
okay,
be a
all right.
presentation by
Testing me.
Carl on the status of the saltwater canal.
Mr. Coate, at your pleasure.
Yes, good morning, Council. It's Carl Cody, Director of Stormwater Engineering Department. Today I'm going to give you an update regarding the saltwater canal system assessment. I do have here with us today two gentlemen from our consultant firm that were selected as the most qualified team to assist us on this first phase in looking at the saltwater canals. So they are here for questions and to assist. If you do want to speak with them, they are here to come up and assist me and answer any questions you have. So I'll run through the presentation, kind of give you an update as to where we are with moving forward on this newly adopted council priority. As you know, last week, as part of the fiscal year 23 strategic action plan, City Council adopted on May 4th was a priority goal for council to develop a plan for the maintenance of the saltwater canals. So typically once those SAP priorities are adopted and put into motion, we then look at and work them into the budget consideration for the upcoming fiscal year 23 budget. We did go through, from our past timeline I had presented to council a while back, was the process of doing an assessment, what was going to be involved, and the steps needed to move forward in that assessment process. So the city issued a request for qualifications back on February 16th. There were 3 proposals received that were evaluated by a team of staff. Taylor Engineering was the top-ranked firm, considered the most qualified firm, and as part of CCNA rules, you typically would negotiate a scope and fee with that top-ranked firm. So we began those meetings with that firm and started drafting a scope and fee document. We did receive that document last week from them after going back and forth a few times with some comments. So it's a fairly, I guess we could call it close to a final draft. We're here to talk about some of those items in upcoming slides to get feedback from council if we're looking for to take some of those items away or add to what we are looking to move forward with the assessment approach. So in addition to working with the consultant, our legal staff has been looking at the title work of the saltwater canal system, doing some title work analysis. That is currently underway. That is moving along in tandem. as we move forward, because we want to make sure we have all the rights and abilities to permit and maintain and do what we need to do within our canal system. So as part of the consultant scope of services scope, we have various items. Permitting is one of them. They'll have to, data collect, research the existing permit information with the various agencies, look into what permits exist, what those requirements were, what they consisted of, because a lot of what we want to do, whether it's going to be considered maintenance or an upgrade to the system, will relate back to those originally developed or approved permits. So there'll be two parts to that. We'll determine some permitting requirements just if we wanted to move forward with just maintenance, with dredging, and then they will also outline for us if there's, what are the additional requirements if we wanted to pursue deepening those canals in the center line or doing something beyond what the original design of the canals was, at least laying out the steps of what it would take, what's involved in the process, just so we have that information at hand, so we have everything on the table. So once the permitting analysis is completed, possibly in tandem with that, they'll be doing some data collection. They'll be doing a bathymetric survey of the existing saltwater canals. They'll be doing a cursory evaluation of the seawalls. A lot of this dredge material can come from dilapidated seawall areas or areas that don't have seawalls. So we'll be collecting that information, at least what's above the water level, what they can see and inspect from the canal. That information will also be shared with our code enforcement department as well. Sample information will be taken, material will be analyzed. There'll be some limited sampling up front just because that is going to determine how and what options we have to dispose of that actual material that would be dredged. So,
Mr. Cohen, I'm sorry, before you go on to the next slide, you use two terms. You use dredging and you use deepening. Are your definitions very different for those two terms?
No, the dredging, they're both dredging. One would be to dredge it to the original permitted design profile, and then one would be to alter that profile.
Thank you.
Which would more than likely would be deepening, the canals. So it would allow the silting up those canals to occur over a long time, so it would be less frequent dredging moving in the future. So the evaluation implementation would be the next step in the process. We'd establish priority areas for dredging based on the existing conditions, the use, the access, costs, and other limiting factors. We would develop some concepts including phasing recommendations, estimated construction costs, and priority areas. They would identify potential funding sources. They have various involvement and experience working with gathering some of these funding options and grants and assistance and where those pots of money may be that they could assist us in identifying those and what the city could seek. They'd also help us identify the disposal areas, because that's the biggest hurdle you have with dredging is how do you get rid of the material, where are the access points, and what do you do with the material once it is dredged. And from there, they'll have a design schedule and a final report. And there's various components. I laid out the entire project timeline. Obviously, we're really focused on the phase one, which is the initial assessment, which is about a 6 to 7 month process to go through and work with all the permitting agencies and do the assessment and analysis and quantify and put together a game plan on how to move forward. Once we know what the assessment is, that's when we would get into the design and permitting of doing the actual work. And once we know what that actual work is, that's when we would analyze, whether it's something we do in-house as a maintenance program, whether it's contracted out, and those sorts of items. And then you'd obviously move it into construction or internally as a maintenance operation. And then moving forward, you'd want to establish a maintenance program. Okay, so based on our previous bathymetric study, our current one, some of the condition of the seawalls, what's the time frame of a maintenance program in terms of dredging in the future? Is there a frequency to certain canals or the overall system, and what makes sense for the city in having that plan in place to move forward? So that really sums up where we're at. So just looking to take questions from council on.
So the first question I have, so the 6 to 7 months puts us, I think, past the current budget preparation cycle, right, into the subsequent budget. And if it's delayed, it certainly pushes it into.
Well, 6 to 7 months would do an assessment, and from there we would need to then do design and permitting. So what we could do as we work through the budget process, if council wants to move forward, we would budget for the assessment and the design and permitting into next year's budget, because the construction would not happen to the year
And when you
after
say
that.
next year's budget, not the budget that we're working towards with our strategic action plan that we started this with, it's the subsequent budget.
Correct. The fiscal year 23 budget, we could include some dollars to begin design next year as well as an assessment.
Okay. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, it will take 6 to 7 months for us to find out what the professional fees are?
No, we have the fees. That's to actually do the assessment, the bathymetric survey, to meet with all the permitting agencies, to identify sites, to work on agreements potentially with using privately owned sites, whether it's a fine site or some other sites, and all that takes. The permitting is the most time-consuming process, you know, in working through, and development's busy right now. All the permitting agencies are very busy. To get through permitting now is very time-consuming.
And is that the reason why we don't know now what the professional fees are?
Well, we have this drought. Right now, we have a pretty good handle on what the fee will be. These are based on the recommended scope items. You know, if we don't even want to pursue or talk about going deeper than the original permitted profile, we can pull that from the scope.
Yeah, but if we don't know what the fees are, how, you know, I think that we should know at least an idea or approximate in order for us to either proceed or not. I think the fees would be good for us to know. I don't want to put you in a spot. I don't know. I don't know what my colleagues think, but I think that we should at least know that before.
Right.
Yes, but let's go back to the process for a minute. So the strategic action priority is in place. So this moves forward. I think what you're thinking about is trying to incorporate dollars in the upcoming budget to move forward. I'm not sure that's what the process calls for.
Well, the initial step is they have a recommended approach to the project to analyze and do an assessment on the saltwater canal system to address council's priority of creating a maintenance plan. So the first step in that process is to do an assessment.
And that's the scope of the work, right?
That's their proposed recommended scope of work.
Right. And then after that, you can assign dollars, I assume.
Right.
So the question I guess City Council may have is there any way to shorten the timeline to get to a scope, a range? I mean, that's really your area.
Our goal is to probably in June, we would have a final number based on the scope. Today is really just to get any feedback from council on whether you think there's items missing in the scope or items you think are unnecessary in the scope. If there is, then we can revise and continue our final negotiations on the scope and bring that number back to you in June. So you have that number as we work on the budget process.
To Vice Mayor Branchino's point, it's really hard to add in stuff or take out stuff without having a magnitude or a dollar scope in mind. I mean, it's a little theoretical.
Is that an option though? Once the scope is determined and we have a proposition in front of us that we're able to go back and revise potential line items if we foresee that the final cost is just not palatable?
It is.
It would restart this whole process and
right. There's some items you obviously can't take out.
Yeah.
Working with the permit agencies, you have to do. Doing the bathymetric survey, you have to do. There's very few items you could take out of this. Yes, you could pull out not doing an assessment of the seawalls, but that's where we know probably some of the dredge material is coming from. And if you don't, if you don't look at and address where the material is coming from, you're just going to be doing this more often. So this is really a comprehensive scope that's being recommended to move forward with.
To us, it feels just a little bit like a chicken and an egg argument. And I understand it. I think we may have to just endure
Carl,
that.
can you give us a rough price on this initial step?
It's somewhere between probably $150,000 and $200,000.
All right, at least we got a feel for that. And I understand you have to get all these other ducks in a row and everything. Is there any way, I mean, we're looking at, what was it, 6 to 7 months to do this initial?
The initial assessment, working with the permitting agency.
I mean, is that the amount of time they've given you that it will take?
That's the time they provided us.
Okay. When you mentioned the depth, changing the depths of these canals, can you give us a little more detail?
That is really just to identify, when they meet with the permitting agencies, what are the steps involved without requiring new permit, a permit modification. If we wanted to say dig it a foot or two deeper in the center line, really what are the hurdles we'd have to go through to make that happen? If it's something very simple, then that may be something we want to consider. If it's going to be very difficult and hard to do, it may be something we're not going to do. It's very few dollars in there. It's really having those additional discussions with the permitting agencies as to what would be involved to get that additional approval to do that.
Because, I mean, I've had some conversations about the depth with Alan Lowe, who lives on the canals, who's been a proponent of this. Maybe Alan, during public comment, could come up and express his views on those depths. I think that would be useful to the council.
Yes. And how wide is the center line?
It's V-shaped. The original permit.
It's going to be a V-shape?
That is what was permitted in the original permit, I believe. I mean, maybe our consultant can verify that for me, but I think I remember looking at the as-built, that's what it said. Did you guys recall looking at the as-built?
A very ancient plan showing a V-shape going to 8 feet.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just to identify yourself for our record, if you would, please.
Yeah. Jim Marino, president of Taylor Engineering. Terry Cake with Taylor Engineering.
Morning.
And yes, Palm Coast did provide a plan that I cannot read the date on it, but it does show a V-shaped canal as a typical design detail going down to 8 feet, minus 8 feet, which does not give us a datum on that. There is some information that we still need to get.
And how deep is the bottom part of the V?
Going down to a datum of 8 feet, mean sea level being roughly the average sea level. So if you assume it's 8 feet of water depth at mid-tide, that would be pretty close.
I'm sorry. That's
8 feet.
18 feet.
Yes, 8
feet.
8-0.
Are you talking about the bottom part of the V? It's 8 feet.
Yes, sir.
And is that going to be enough? Because right now we're probably about 5, 6. Right now, we're just basically going to go down 2 feet, from what I understand.
So 8 was the original construction from the
Right,
canal.
that was the original permitted ability.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't know. Forgive my ignorance on this. I'm talking about once we dig, once we dredge, what's going to be the depth let's put it this way, how much are we going to dig to reach the bottom V? I have a problem with that, because if you only have a V and you have 2 vessels going by, one of them has to stop. And so that's why I asked, what was the length of the bottom, I'm sorry, of the center line?
So maybe I can help. We have a permit that we have to comply with through the state agency. Right now, that permit sets what the canal should look like. So that's what it should look like. That's what we're allowed to do right now. They have to do a bathymetric survey, which tells you what the difference is between the depth that the permit allows versus all the sediment that's come in, how much, to try to determine what the current conditions are. They also have to speak to the permitting agencies to see, okay, this is what we need to do. Here's what we think we need to do to get back to what our permit allows for. And as Carl said, what would we need to do if we wanted to change that? If we wanted to go deeper, what would the hurdles be to that? Would they even allow for that? We are restricted by those state agencies as to what we can do here. So I don't know if the specifics you're trying to get out right now are available, because our hands are tied at the moment due to lack of all the information we need and not having those conversations with state permitting agencies.
But what are we aiming at? Never mind, okay, respecting what you said, what are we aiming at as depth? Because it's very important. actually the most
Would be
important
the
thing.
original approved permit documents is what we would be originally seeking, because that is your typical maintenance program. That is usually what is allowed. Doing something different, it may be something that we may not get approval for. So yes, we are gonna pursue what that could be. It could be deeper, it could be a flat channel in the middle. There could be multiple options that we're gonna have discussions with them on.
Right now it's 8 feet.
But right now, it's 8 feet.
Let me approach the question just a little bit differently. So, gentlemen, based on your experience, I know you have many years together experience in this work. The overwhelming majority of vessels that would use our saltwater canals would have no issue if we were able to sustain or maintain an 8-foot depth at the vortex of the V.
Right, so let me take this from a couple of directions. So that the permit drawing was very odd, to be quite frank. Most all of the canals we look at, let alone, we do the entire stretch of the Florida Inland Navigation District, so from Miami-Dade all the way up to the state line, West Coast, they're almost all trapezoidal shaped. In other words, there is a flat bottom of some width, and then there are side slopes, because for the vast majority of the material in Florida in particular is sandy, loamy, mucky soil. And so to stay in a V would be very difficult. To have the initial construction might have lasted for a day. And I've done this for 40 years. The Army, even sent me to graduate school to learn this stuff. I didn't need a permit for 20 years while I was in the Army, but now I do. So while we have to stay within the permit, and we plan on going back and determining if that permit, in fact, was that, or is that some design drawing that could be left over. But the initial intent in the scope was the simplest way to get to yes with the permitting agencies is to do exactly what they permitted the last time, because then that's maintenance. And then to recommend improvements, which we've been able to do throughout the state, based on what we've learned over 50 years, 40 years of doing this throughout. When it comes to hotspots where there's significant shoaling, because it won't be all 26 miles have the same amount of shoaling. It's never worked that way in Florida. And again, there are some vertical canals. If you get down Miami where you cut through Lime Rock and the rest, some of those canals are in fact vertical. But that won't be the case here, because we pretty much know the stratum here from the other work we've done on the coast here. So what we would do is go back and recommend a more ideal profile. Now, the permitting agencies are under no obligation to do something that may be smarter. Now, have they been cooperative in the past with all the other things that we've done? Yes, they are, especially if you're willing to bring them in right up front in the process of here's what our intent is, so that it's not a guessing game for them, and then they're not brought in at the last minute and say, hey, you never asked us, and work through whatever issues they may have. So that's really the intent, is to bring them in up front, and that kind of drags out the process, but it gets you closer to the yes that you want at the end. It's what the community wants, is what you're trying to deliver. The hotspot pieces, so we may not say dredge everything if you wanted it deeper. If your choice is to, okay, so here's what the initial maintenance permit says, but we may want it deeper. It may only be to go deeper, and where we've been successful is where it tends to shoal, we can sometimes get the permitting agencies to let us dig sediment traps. So a couple, 3 feet deeper, just in those areas where it tends to fill up quicker, because then it really doesn't impede the navigation. It doesn't require nearly as much dredging, which is money, because then you have to find a place to put it.
Right.
So that's why it's an iterative process to try to get you to the yes that you want for the future.
So, assuming that drawing is correct, and the V shape was originally used, and it's been there for 25 years or more now, more than 21 and a half years. I don't know the angle of the V, but you're pulling a draft of 5 or 6 feet probably, which I assume it would be interesting to know what the inventory of vessels that that frequent the canal are, just to make sure that we are, if we are unable to customize the permit, are we accommodating the majority of our residents with the size of their boats?
Right, and that's an argument to bring back to the permitting agency that says, hey, we'd like to modify this because here's how the world has changed, especially Palm Coast. I mean, honestly, for me, I go back to 1998 with Palm Coast. You know, when Mr. Bill Harkins was designing and building some things out at Matanzas Shores, and the only reason I knew Bill was we both coached lacrosse, and Flagler, Palm Coast, and Bowles were the only teams north of Seminole County. Long story, but so we've watched the evolution. I've watched the evolution of Palm Coast over the years, clearly. And so there's a different market now. A perfectly good reason to go back to a permitting agency and say, hey, there's a different need now. But doing that inventory is actually relatively simple. You have that record based on registrations. That's just a matter of,
okay.
That's simple to do, and be able to go back and say, but here's what the community represents. Here's what it would like to try to do. So,
questions? Obviously,
No
this is the
questions.
first step.
I understand fully what you're saying. Carl, I want to thank you for being on top of this. I wish we could put this on Operation Warp Speed and get this done sooner, but I understand the permitting issues. So just keep us in the loop. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
What could shoot from $150,000 to $200,000? Because that's $50,000 there. Is that a reason why we could go from 150? 150 is guaranteed. 200,000 just for this assessment. Because right now, you know, even though it's needed, because I'm one of those that believe that invest to save. And this is, if we're going to go ahead with it, this is an investment possible to save money. So let us know exactly what we need. But what could go from $150,000 to $200,000 for this assessment?
Some of those items could be, you know, we haven't finalized our fee. You know, the permitting agencies, it could be 3 meetings with them, it could be 22 meetings with them, you know, and going through our process and proposals, especially if we're looking to modify them in terms of what the approvals would be. So some of those could be a not to exceed portion in their fee based on how many meetings and back and forth we go through with the permitting agencies. Yeah, obviously the survey is going to be a fixed fee portion of the scope. So we have those are some of the items we really haven't finalized on in terms of the breakdown of the various components, where some will be a not to exceed amount and some would be a fixed fee portion. So we are looking to resolve those. I just gave you a broad range. We're probably more towards, you know, the middle of that. You know, it's probably where our target is, but based on once we finalize things, it could go up a little bit, down a little bit. You know, we're really just trying to identify what we want to carry in our base fee in terms of making sure we have done all our due diligence.
All right. That's, like I said, $200,000. It's $200,000 for an assessment. But if we need it, we need it. Thank you.
Councilman?
Yep, I would just wanted to thank you for all the time and effort you're putting into this, and I know there's hopefully we get back a diverse set of opportunities that we have to potentially improve the canals long-term, and I know, sitting here looking at John Netz, I remember how he was explaining to me the difficulty with dredging and how eventually you have to get the material out of the canals, and how exit points along all of the canals actually make a difference on the actual material that we're moving. And I'm looking forward to reading the report, and I thank you for your level of detail and professionalism. Thank you.
Councilman Finelli, any comment? Nope. Very good. Gentlemen, thank you very much, and we look forward to you know, the next step. Carl, thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Carl, you're up again, right?
Yes. So now we'll shift to our other transportation network, our roadway system. And we'll talk specifically about our roadway asset management program. As you know, we've been working on this over many years to do an analysis of our roadway system and to come up with a cost-effective approach and analysis of how we identify, target, and program the maintenance of the roadway network. You know, and just to revisit, our citizen survey results. People think this is an excellent place to live. It's a great place to raise kids. They recommend to others to live here in Palm Coast. And on our current year citizen survey, we had some very specific questions that were added in, custom questions relating to our roadway system. What they thought of the condition of the neighborhood streets. And it was average, 72% thought, the condition of the neighborhood roads are average, and the condition of the major streets, we're a little bit above average, I guess, at an 82%. And City Council focus areas, this is another council priority item, a focus area, street maintenance. It's been one since 2019, to establish a target for street maintenance, to analyze funding sources, and to put together a program for street maintenance. If you don't know where you are going, any road will get you there. So really what we've been trying to do is collect our data and put together a strategy on how we want to assess and move forward with upkeep of our roadway network. And we have quite an extensive roadway network in the city, 542 miles. So that's just centerline miles. So if you add up the lane miles throughout the city, we have over 1,200 lane miles. And it's roughly $846 million asset, and that's based from our Transmap report of, building a roadway cost, and on average, about $1.56 million per mile. So it's a very extensive, expensive network that we need to, keep on top of and maintain in good shape. So the city had contracted with Transmap. We had done this several years ago, back in 2017, and to assist us in putting together a maintenance program. And so I just wanted to revisit as to who Transmap was when we went through that selection process. They have extensive Florida experience. They're a micro paver trainer developers. That's part of the data set and then software that's utilized to scan and analyze the condition of the roadways. They use current best technology. They're a public works partner for 20 years. They've done this for over 300 cities and counties. They're an open source, which means the data that they produce, they give over to the city, and then we can edit it, manipulate it, incorporate it into our GIS system, and use the data. So it's not like a sole source where we're tied to Transmap from this point moving forward. Like I indicated, they're a public works partner, and they're also a registered engineering company since 1994. So what did they do? So back in the August of 2017, they came in with a truck outfitted with some specialized equipment, has a camera on the top, it has 6 lenses, does panoramic views, it takes snapshots along the roadway and of the condition of the asphalt. But then it also has this LiDAR scanner, which has over 700,000 points of basically rays that feedback and pick up the roadway points and identifies cracks, the length, the width, the depth of the cracks, and it really picks up information that's smaller than what the human eye can actually detect. So once they collect all this data, they incorporate it, they do some analysis of the data. Some of the type of cracking will tell you different things on the length of the cracking, the shape of the cracking, it'll tell you whether it's the pavement or the subgrade that may be causing some failures. But they give you an overall condition. We have this electronically. We have PDF maps. The one on the left is just an overall image of the city. The one on the right is kind of a blow-up of the street system, and they do it from an intersection to an intersection. So you can really pinpoint on sections of roadways that may have issues or problems. And obviously, green is good, red is bad. And this is just a little more information on the grading scale. It runs from 0 to 100. Up at the top is good. And you over time, it's not a flat curve deterioration. As the roadway ages, you don't go, okay, in 20 years it's going to drop 2 points every year. It doesn't work that way. The first several years it stays in really good shape. then it starts to crack, and then once it begins to crack and water can get through the roadway and it loses some of its structural integrity, then it drops off fairly quickly. If it gets below a certain point, then it becomes very costly to reconstruct, because then it's not a maintenance rehab, then you're dealing with reconstructing the roadway. Sometimes it's even reconstructing some of the subgrade within the roadway system. So this is an item, this graph, each roadway is going to have a different time frame to it. This is just one based on a 16-year lifespan on our roadway. Our analysis, what we've been using so far, and the information we collected, is our arterial collectors would need to be resurfaced every 13 years, and our residentials, I think, every 23 years. So you want to basically maintain your roadway before it gets too bad, because then the costs go up exponentially. So
this is, each time in our strategic action planning process, we kick the proverbial can down the road, it'll take more pennies to fix it at an accelerating rate.
correct. And I do have some information regarding that towards the end of what deferred maintenance would mean and what some of the additional costs could be. So just to kind of give you some examples of what those PCI numbers are, 95 is basically a newly paved road, really good shape. In 80, you start to see cracking, whether it's across the road or some horizontal cracking or longitudinal cracking in the roadway. As you get down to a 70, there's obviously more severe cracking across the entire network. At 54, you can start seeing depressions in the roadway. It's much more, failure in the system itself. This is really a cause of concern. Once you get anything in the 60s or below, that's when you start getting into, more critical concern regarding maintenance. And then obviously at 35 is where it's failing, chips, asphalt's coming up from the road, or there's missing pieces of roadway in there, or there's big depressions in the roadway travel lanes or whatnot. So that's basically a failure. So where did the city stand? When we scanned in 2017, our average network was at a 79. So we're, a little above, we're in the satisfactory area, not too bad. 4 years later, we dropped down to a 75, 4 points, and our consultant, found that alarming when they presented us the data. Back in 2017, we had a recommended funding level that they said, well, if you want to maintain a 79, this is your recommended funding. We've been, the revenue's not there to implement the recommended plan in 2017, so it's dropped 4 points, So that is why we had such a drop, is we had limited funds to put towards this program. And this kind of outlines, where do we stand with other cities in Florida. You can see we're, roughly in the middle, maybe a little bit below the middle in terms of what our overall network condition is. And just to give you some history, and how did the city maintain roadways, in the past? There was a 10-year period where a half-cent surtax that was imposed, across the county. We received a portion of that, and it was dedicated strictly in Palmco's for resurfacing. So we were able to pave a lot of roadways. You can see there's, roughly 700 lane miles that were paved during that time period. And in the past 10 years, we did roughly 25% of that lane miles. That was just due to the loss of that revenue that was dedicated to the resurfacing program. It was a 10-year tax that expired, did not get renewed. And then over the past 5 years, we spent about $2 million annually. We've been able to put some additional, I guess that would be dollars from the general fund into this. We've been able to transfer some other project dollars into various projects to help try and add as much funding as we can and enhance the revenue to do as many roads as we could, but it was well below what was recommended in the previous scan. So what currently funds the Street Improvement Fund, there's two sources that come in here. Helena will jump in if I mess this up. We have the local option fuel tax, which is currently 6 cents per gallon, and that's on fuel purchased in the county. It's distributed per an interlocal agreement based on road miles, and it's restricted for transportation expenses. And then there's the state revenue sharing portion, which is a portion of the state sales tax and use tax collections, and a 1 cent municipal fuel tax. So in that second pot, the state requires use of 22.64% of those funds to be used for street maintenance. So back in 21, as we tried to add more dollars to this program, we've increased that allocation to 45% that's received from the state. And one thing to note, these two funds from the state are fairly flat. And this is something that is statewide, nationwide. The gas tax has been flat, barely increasing over time, and we know the cost of asphalt, of doing work, has been climbing and climbing and climbing. So we're getting a lot less done, and we're getting not much more money coming in. So that's some of the hurdles that we're fighting. Our 5-year CIP in the Streets Improvement Fund, so those two funds bring in about $3 million. We try and put towards about 1.7 million or so towards our resurfacing program. And then we have other items in terms of street maintenance that, we need to complete. We do have some restriping, we do have resurfacing, street lighting in here, traffic signals. We've added a lot of traffic signals since 2000. So as those age, we're gonna have to spend more and more dollars. So there's gonna be some critical items with those other components that are gonna eat into that resurfacing program as those other items age and need to be rehabilitated. And we've also deferred items. Median beautification, entry and gateway signs have been deferred, neighborhood signs deferred, sidewalks, the pedestrian access ways, along roadways, all those have been deferred. Those were in the past funded from this fund, but knowing we are so underfunded in resurfacing, those had been deferred and no dollars have been allocated towards those in the capital improvement plan. So the consultant did a projection for us saying, okay, well, if you continue your current allocation, of roughly $1.5 million per year moving forward, what's the condition of the roadway going to look like in 5 years? And you can see the arterials will drop 10 points, and your local roads will drop 7 points. And as I indicated, getting into those 60s is you're really past that critical stage. That's when your roads are in really bad shape. They're going to start adding costs to resurface those, to maintain those roadways. We only dropped 4 points in the past 4 years. Now we're going to drop much more. We're getting into that steeper part of the curve. So the recommended plan, we said, okay, well, if we want to maintain our current roadways, citizens feel that's an average condition for the roadways or just above on the arterials, what kind of dollars would that take to put together a program to just maintain what we have today at the condition we have today across the city? And that was just over $8 million would need to be allocated towards that type of program. And as you can see, our current funding was only at about 1.5 million. There were a little over 8 million. So we're roughly 7.5 million in deficit in terms of revenue to maintain our roadway network. And just getting back to what does that mean? So if we don't add revenue to this program or find a new revenue source, what does that mean in terms of kicking the can down the road per se of, yes, that's going to be roughly $32 million of roadways in 5 years that you'd have to pave to get back up to where the roads are today. But there's going to be some roads that are in that critical area that are going to cost more to resurface or maintain. So it's going to be more about over $38 million to actually get back to where we are today. So it's one of those that gets very costly the longer you wait just to get back to what we have today. So that's really just providing a summary of information for you guys today to consider and identify our funding needs that are necessary for this program to move forward.
Carl, just two questions that I have. So if we're approaching 78% of the population of the county, are we getting 78% of the 6 cents? In other words, are we getting a proportionate share of the gas tax funding?
I believe the formula is based on the road miles maintained. So each entity within the county is dispersed at a formula based on how many lane miles each entity maintains on the overall percentage basis.
Would you know how many lane miles we have? What percentage of the lane miles the city are within the city limits of Palm Coast versus the county? I'm going to venture to say it's more than 78%.
I think we have the majority of it, but I don't know the exact percentage.
I'm questioning the allocation. Okay.
We don't have that offhand.
But so
Something we
so
can give
who's on whose word or authority do we accept what we get?
If we're going Price is Right rules, I think
We submit our information to the county on an annual basis. The county reaches out to us and say, hey, do you have any updates to your lane miles you maintain? Because we do add roads or take over roadway maintenance.
But so we're kicking that can down the street in terms of what we've gotten in the past.
Yeah.
As opposed to re-looking at the formulation.
Well,
and again, with the explosive growth, I'm assuming that our road construction and the length of lane miles has accelerated. And the formula that you're working from, I'm just asking, might well be based on 10 years ago, for all I know. Possible?
That I don't know
Okay.
who established the formula or how it was established. I don't know if it's a state policy that we're following.
So we can talk about that, okay. And then the other question, Counselor, from a legal standpoint, when we get to a certain road condition, is there any liability, a safety issue with regard to our requirement to maintain the roads?
Well, we are required to maintain the roads, whether there's a specific legal threshold to where that goes. There's not one that I'm aware of. I can do a little more research on that and come back with an answer if you'd like when it comes back, but I don't think that there's like, as far as a number, okay, if it's under this, then that causes the hazard.
I just wouldn't want to be in a position where we had gone under and suddenly we had an unknown liability that was facing us. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
It's a no-brainer. In between 8 million and 38 million, no-brainer. And if we keep on going that path, some of us are going to be drinking some funny stuff, my friends, because unless we choose the easy way of governing, which is going to our emergency funds, which I don't agree with, get ready, Palm Coast. Get ready. Your taxes are going to go up. But we need to do this. Thank you.
Councilman?
Yeah, I would say this has been a proverbial can that we've been kicking down the road, and that road is getting exponentially worse now, right? So I do understand that we need to maintain our roads to a higher level, and I'm thankful that we years ago implemented the new LiDAR mechanisms in place, so we're able to have a more exact view on the quality of our roads. Prior to that, we would send people out manually. They would be driving around in their trucks, right? And they would actually be grading the level of road. So now that we have this enhanced insight into the level of service that our roads are maintaining, I think it gives our council the necessary data that we need to have a realistic expectation on what it's going to take to maintain these roads to the standard that Palm Coast expects.
And perhaps the data will also allow us to better understand a phasing program so that we are working our way forward, obviously curing the worst first. Okay. Councilman?
Roads, fire, police, water, must-haves, total must-haves, which means we need to start looking at the things we don't need. And we need to start making some cuts in order to do what we need to do here. And, there's no other way around this. We can't just raise taxes. We have to be a little bit more careful with our money first, and hopefully maybe attract some more business to this area, because right now 92% of our tax base is residents, and that doesn't quite cut it. So appreciate the update, Carl. I think we cannot continue to kick this can down the road. because there won't be a road to kick the can down if we do that. Thank you.
So
Finelli?
I definitely think it's something that we need to be forward-thinking on with with more electric vehicles on the road, with more fuel-efficient vehicles on the road, with the prices of gas. We do not have a sustainable model to fund repaving our roads. And actually, we have a model that over time is going to go away. So we do have to look at how we're going to fund this, where the money's going to come from. And I agree that kicking the can down the road is only going to cost us more in the long run. So we need to explore all funding options, look at our budget, and look at putting money where it matters the most.
So last comment to Councilman Finelli's, very, very good point. So do you keep in touch with either Florida League of Cities or other organizations who are looking for new and unused funding sources from the past? Are you able to be creative by sharing our needs with other cities around the state? I'm sure others are having the same issue and getting creative now and looking for funding sources that we have not tapped before is certainly a worthwhile exercise now, which may be part of your regular routine.
Absolutely. So we have reached out to other communities trying to find out if they had specific different sources than what we're using right now. It's come back that it's basically the same of what we have, the same transportation, the same gas tax. What we did find is that others do have public service taxes that we don't, and they also have utility franchise fees that we don't. And
Okay.
that's been brought back to council.
So something we could look at. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments at this point? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Bless you.
Yes, Counselor.
Yes, this is a resolution approving an exception to the CDBG cost feasibility limits. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving an exception to the Community Development Block Grant cost feasibility limits, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you all for coming to make this presentation, so please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, members of City Council. Jose Papa for the Community Development Department. With me here today is Mr. Antonio Jenkins, who is a housing rehabilitation specialist with our CDBG program, and Jackie Gonzalez to my right, who is the day-to-day program manager of our housing rehabilitation program. Just to give you some background here about the CDBG program, as you know, we are an entitlement community which receives an annual allocation from HUD that we use for CDBG, for qualified activities, and qualified activities are those that will benefit a low moderate income household or a low moderate income area. It's there to help eliminate slum or blight, or if there's a sudden urgent need in the community due to a declared disaster, you can use CDBG funds for that. So since the city has become an entitlement community in 2012, one of the main activities that we fund with CDBG funds is an owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program that takes up the majority of the funds that we receive from CDBG. Now, the objectives of that program include the following, specifically to remove unhealthy and hazardous living conditions, to preserve the existing housing stock or the replacement of substandard housing, and to enable families to rehabilitate their home by providing financial and technical assistance. The rules and the guidelines for how that program is managed is established within a local housing assistance plan, which was adopted by council in 2013 as part of that original allocation as an entitlement community. The LHAP establishes a maximum limit of $50,000 per housing unit. unless there are available funds and if it's approved by the city manager, that extra amount. So this year, we've had a challenge with one of our applicants. One of our applicants had a home. As they qualify income-wise, the home qualifies, and as you know, within the program, we take a first come, first application, first completed application as our priority. So this applicant went through that process, and as I mentioned, they qualified income-wise. Their home is qualified, and they were within that threshold that we have funds to assist them. The problem is that there is a significant amount of work to be done for this housing unit. And so that's really why we're here. That limit is $50,000, and we need to exceed that $50,000. I will explain that, show the numbers to you a little later. So just going through it briefly, and Mr. Antonio is here really to help emphasize, or if you have any additional questions about the condition of this home, he'll be able to help with that. We've had not only our housing rehab specialist look at it, we also had one of our inspectors from the building department look at it too, just to see, to create a scope that would really benefit the homeowner, and to make the home, bring it back to an acceptable condition. So what we have, the major issues to be addressed include roof work, the interior, we have some mold remediation. I think once water seeps into the interior of a home, we know what's going to happen. Your kitchen, your bath cabinets start to fall off the wall, your insulation in the ceiling, your drywall, and including with your HVAC system, the ductwork, water heater, and when water gets in, then also your electrical service begins to be impacted. So just some brief, quick pictures here. The one on the right, you can't quite tell, but that's a dip in the roof, and you see some holes in the roof. And those holes, of course, led to this condition inside the house. You have the mold, the ductwork falling out of the ceiling. See the electrical is impacted. And again, you can see the sunlight coming through the roof. And here we are with the mold on the walls. These aren't all the pictures that we have, but this is just really provide you a sample of the challenge that we have here. We have a resident. That's one thing I should mention. The homes that we assist are all within the city of Palm Coast boundaries. So we have a resident who, through just the course of life, has many challenges. And so this need probably festered longer than it needed to. And that when he applied for the program, we just thought that this is someone that this could change of course, affect the quality of life for this resident. So the cost of repair is $163,364. We have entered into partnership with the Flagler County SHIP program, where we will split the cost equally between the SHIP program and our CDBG program. So that's a total of $81,682 for each program. And so what staff is requesting is $34,682 over the $50,000 limit for the CDBG program. That $31,682 is for repair, and $3,000 is for the temporary relocation of the homeowner while the work is being done. The relocation of the homeowner is really at the recommendation of our housing rehab specialist, and that's there to really expedite and complete the work in the most time-efficient manner. So these costs come, of course, as construction costs, labor costs, the uncertainty and volatility in the construction industry of what that price would be for repair. And so, this is why we approached this. We're trying to use additional dollars from SHIP and also the CDBG program. And at this time, this is staff's recommending that we move forward with assisting this resident bring their home back to really a livable condition. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to.
Yep, I had a few questions. One, my opinion is that this is absolutely causing blight in the area, and I'm sure that the neighborhood is impacted by this the residents, excuse me. My question would be, how long would construction probably take? I know the $3,000 for temporary relocation, is that, to me, that means like it could be completed in a couple of months, but is that something that's realistic with the amount of work that needs to be done, or?
We have it right now as a 6-month reconstruction period.
Gotcha. And do you think that $3,000 is enough for temporary relocation of the homeowner?
I believe, Jackie, want to answer? We asked the homeowner to find their accommodations.
Understood. Okay, roger that. And there are mechanisms in place that for these type of solutions to these homes that they have to remain in the home, and that they, with the funding mechanisms. And could you just talk about how the payback works so that they're not getting $81,000 of repairs and they can basically sell the home and things like that?
There is a 10-year clawback period for the city in the program. There's no forgiveness of, I guess I should go back and say that any assistance amount provided the homeowner becomes a lien on their property. And that's there so that if they move within the first 5 years, the city gets, I keep saying the city, but the program, the money goes back to the program. The program receives that funding assistance amount back to be used as part of the program. After the 6th year, there's a 20% forgiveness until the culmination of the 10th year, when that total lien will be forgiven. And that's with any home assisted through the program. Yep.
Does there become a point, $163,000 is a significant amount of money. Does there become a point where the home is in such disrepair that it is not worth investing that sum of money into that home and maybe rebuilding a new structure? Or?
Sure. Yeah, I believe it's the 50% mark. If it's going to cost more than 50% of the home value to repair the home, then the recommendation with the CDB, and Antonio can confirm this, that you basically have to go into a demo and basically building a new home.
So this home, when reconstructed, is worth over $320,000. Is what's okay.
Absolutely.
A question, have we ever exceeded the number in the, I don't remember, I used to sit on those committees. I don't remember ever, is this a precedent?
This is the first time since we've been an entitlement community that we've had to exceed the 50,000 mark. Second, sorry. There was the state program that, okay. So yes, this is the second.
Okay, so I just have to ask you to just summarize again. You're suggesting a precedent here, which means others could, situations could arise in the future, referring back to this precedent. The rationale that this has gone through the committees?
This is not.
This is not.
This is not, because
this is totally administrative staff has dictated
yes, sir, because this, based on the LHAP, it's essentially the city manager who approves any expenditure over 50,000.
Okay.
But we've brought it here since
and
that expense needs to be approved by city council.
I'm not as current as I would like to be on any changes to the SHIP program in this past legislative session. Can you update me?
What we know is that, if we're just talking strictly about funding.
Yes.
The county slated to receive, I believe, over $1 million in the SHIP program.
Which represents what over the last, what's the trend?
The last year, I believe it was 350,000, so significantly more.
Okay. And when you say the county's going to receive that, the program?
Yes, the SHIP program is administered by the county through an interlocal agreement between the city and the county.
But there's no allocation city versus county, right? It's
no, sir. But
just to the program.
Yes, sir. But I can tell you that based on the annual reports that's provided by the county to the city, a significant, the majority of the funds are spent within the city of Palm Coast, as you would expect.
As my experience in the past too.
Yes, as you would expect when we're the majority of the,
I do have a few more. The funds that are coming down are federal dollars.
yes, sir.
Yes, so there's no local impact
No, sir.
on the community. Also, are there other applicants that we won't be able to fund because we are overfunding this?
With this round that this applicant was in, we were able to fund everyone that applied and qualified, I should say. Yes,
So everyone will get funded?
yes, sir.
And this is an arithmetic question, and I probably should know the answer. So the property is appraised today at a certain amount. When you complete construction, it's going to be reappraised at some point in time. The difference is going to be significant, and there's going to be a tax burden based on the homeowner at that point. Is that figured into your calculations for the future?
In terms of,
Being able to pay the tax, the ad valorem tax on the property?
do we do that as part of
Did I not ask my question clearly? The property has a value today if it were appraised of X. If this work is done with this investment, when it's appraised again, it'll be X plus. Do you calculate in the additional taxes that'll be due to the,
This is a homesteaded property, so I'm not sure what role really is.
So, I'm sorry, the damage now, so I don't think the property appraiser's office does their appraisals based on the current, damage to the home, I think, unless it was like outwardly demolished or something like that. So I don't know that fixing it to the point that it's habitable again.
well, for example, it'll have a new roof. So I know for sure
Right.
that it'll show a new date on the property appraisers, which would add value to the home.
Yeah,
Amongst
there
other
may
things.
be some value
Yeah, but-
added. I don't know that it would be so much as the tax burden would be
Okay.
overwhelming. It's not like you're going in and updating all the fixtures or adding a room on or something like that. This is
And the reason for my question is to make sure that the resident will be able to, comfortably, financially, enjoy the benefit of the investment.
Yes, sir. And all improvements are, again, they're health, safety improvements or reconstruction. We're not doing anything that, we're not putting granite countertops on the home as part of this program.
Okay.
It is done at the acceptable level to just bring it back up to a habitable condition.
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Does this home have a mortgage on it?
No.
No. Okay, my question would be if we did this with a home that had a mortgage, and then the owner defaulted on that mortgage, what would happen to these monies?
Based on the LHAP, if someone defaulted on, of course, the primary lien would be paid off, and whatever is still left with equity or will then come to us as the second lien holders.
At this home, there is no mortgage?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Last question I have leads me to insurance, right? So they don't have a mortgage, so they're not required to have insurance. So all this money could be invested into this home, something could happen with this home, there would be no insurance that would guarantee that the home
As a
would be
requirement of
replaced.
the program, we will be putting a mortgage on the property, so then they would be required to have insurance once we complete the work.
Excellent, thank you.
And I would just like to say thank you for the tremendous work that everyone contributes to, because you're actually improving the lives of Palm Coast and Flagler County residents, and it's definitely going to be a lifesaver for whoever the resident is in here, and I'm thankful that we're in a position where we can provide that type of assistance, so thank you guys for all the hard work.
And not only the resident that will enjoy this, but the neighborhood, I'm sure, will also benefit as a group for the community. So good. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda, item number F7, is a resolution approving piggybacking the contract between Stryker Medical and Savic Buying Group for LifePak cardiac monitors. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving a piggyback contract between Stryker Medical and Savic Buying Group for LifePak cardiac measures, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute said agreement, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Ms. Bevan, good
we have today is Jennifer Fiveash. She is our fire coordinator, and you might be asking, where does a fire coordinator fit into the realm of the fire department? Well, she is in a position to make everybody in the department better. Better employees, better oncoming employees. She has done research in the last year on how gaps are existing in our fire department, so that part of our KPI on improving the hiring and appointment of future employees, they're meeting the certification, the education requirements, and the criteria. She's a 17-year veteran, has been with us for quite a while, and has rose through the ranks to this position and is making a definitive impact on our operation. She will take us through the technical part. She's much better at it than I am. And then I'll finish it up by giving you a little bit more information about the American Recovery Plan Act, which is going to fund this. So to Mr. Finelli's point on the last item, this is a national act that was broadcast to every community in the country last year. We received funds, and we intend on using these funds according to what would be 2.1 from the COVID response plan for medical care and enhancement of health care capacity. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer at this point.
Good morning. That was quite the introduction. Thank you, Chief. Mayor, City Council, Ms. Bevan, we're going to go ahead and take you through a very brief PowerPoint. I'm just going to explain a little bit of what we do at the fire department as far as our medical aspect, and then take you through what the capabilities are for our cardiac monitors. So to start off, and just a reminder that we are an advanced life support department. We do not transport, but we do everything that a transporting agency does, except to close the ambulance doors and actually take them to the hospital. So something that we do is we work off of our medical protocols, which are a guideline established by our team and our medical director that we share with Flagler County Fire Rescue in Flagler Beach. With our many tools that we use on everyday incidents, our cardiac monitors are crucial to providing the most efficient care that we can for our patients. Just a little bit of data statistics. Year to date, we've ran just over 4,800. I'm sure by now that has increased just a little bit more after this morning's calls. So some of the capabilities, and definitely not limited to this, but some of the capabilities that our cardiac monitors do, they monitor the heart rate, they monitor the blood pressure, they also monitor pulse oximetry. And that picture is a great example of our paramedics and EMTs being able to work on scene and using their hands for more invasive procedures while we're getting real-time data with our monitors capability of just continuously monitoring those vital signs. Another, you'll see the squiggly lines on there. We actually don't call those squiggly lines. Those are heart rhythms, and that is another capability of our cardiac monitors. It allows us to see real-time electrical activity within the heart and allow us to go down the right treatment modality. A really neat thing that has happened over the course of evolving medicine is that this monitor is actually able to transmit that 12 lead to the hospital itself. So early notification in our job is crucial to efficient care for best outcomes for patients. So this is something with, we call them myocardial infarctions, others know them as heart attacks. When we see that in the field, we're directly able to send that to the hospital and then get that to the emergency room, and they can go ahead and start their processes there. So we also have end-tidal capnography, which is very critical in our critical patients. That is something that we use every time that we intubate a patient, which is putting the tube down their trachea to breathe for them. That's going to let us know if we're in the realm of ventilating properly. A lot of people are aware of the internal pacemakers that our cardiac patients have. We also have the ability to do that on our cardiac monitors. So we can externally pace a patient when their heart isn't performing appropriately. Another thing we can do is cardiovert somebody, which is a very similar tool as the pacemaker. It's just on the other end of the spectrum with our low and high heart rates. The defibrillation is a really great thing. We have AEDs around the city, and those are automated. So something that we can do is we can see a rhythm, real life data through this, and know if we immediately have to intervene, where the common lay person would not know that. That's part of our skill set. Another great thing is that's part of the KPIs that we have. So 30% of our cardiac arrest is our goal to get return to spontaneous circulation, which is also known as ROSC. The current monitors that we have are version 2. They're about 10 years old, so it's kind of like the iPhone 6. Not really current. There's some things in there that they're just not going to be compatible with what today's manufacturers can support. So we were told through our meetings and discussions with these vendors that they're about to be outdated. So we need to update to the newer version. We did have several different meetings with our current vendor and their largest competitor. And we recommend for multiple reasons, most importantly, the continuity of patient care from us to Flagler County Fire Rescue for transport and even to the hospital, because they also have the similar monitors, that we stay with our current vendor, which is Stryker. Just a new little tidbit for the new version that we are looking at is that it has the Bluetooth connectivity, which is huge. We can immediately send pertinent information following HIPAA guidelines to Flagler County Fire Rescue to get that efficient continuity of care as quick as possible, get them to the hospital.
So today we're looking at purchasing 10 life packs version 4 from the piggyback that we requested. The purchase includes trade-in credit, in-service training, and 4-year service agreement, which is valuable for a piece of equipment such as this. The project was originally budgeted for $320,000 and utilizes the ARPA funding that is already in our budget in the capital improvement plan, and we're requesting just $307,924 for the purchase of this product.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
I have a question. Stryker is the manufacturer?
Yes, it was formerly known as Physio.
Okay. Have we reached out to Stryker and let them know that we have a special demographic here in the city of Palm Coast? And would they be willing to grant or provide us with an exceptional discount because of our demographics to use as a model for the rest of their business around the country?
Well, what we have been able to do is with the conversations we've had with Zoll, which was the other manufacturer, we're already getting a very significant discount price. So if we didn't go through this ARPA plan, we'd be looking about $40,000 a year for the next 10 years, which would have been in a range of about $400,000.
That's great.
So we're already getting a significant discount from the other manufacturer, Zoll, and they're able to do us a credit of giving us money back on the equipment that we do have instead of getting an additional credit.
Because I'm thinking from their self-interest point of view, from a marketing campaign, the number of lives that you could save might actually be higher than other places where you don't have the demographic that we enjoy here in Palm Coast. So we could become a model city marketing tool for them. So just trying to get an edge.
To your point, it might not be a credit for the life packs, but something that we could look at is the AEDs or the automatic external defibrillators.
Okay.
To see if we can get more of those out into the bigger areas
Super.
of the community. Okay. So we could look at that.
Thank you.
And compared
Question.
to the competitor, just to add to that, compared to the competitor, it was almost $140,000 savings going with Stryker than Zoll, which is significant.
No questions. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for the work you do.
Chief, did I hear you say there's a buyback on the devices we currently have? And
There
that
is.
figures into, okay.
Yeah, there is a credit that we get per unit. And once these units reach a certain end-of-life capabilities, it's kind of like what we ran into with the radio system 2-3 years ago. The radios reach their end of life, and they can no longer support it with the software and the components. They go on to the next version. They'll take the life packs, convert them into something different, and send them off to a different country that don't have the same requirements.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councilman?
No comment. Thank you for all your hard work, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Council.
Counselor? Nope. Sorry.
That's
Presentation.
okay. This staff's presentation.
Morning, Council.
Morning.
We're in the home stretch. Doug Akins, IT Director, here to present and discuss with you today options for bringing council off the dais onto the floor for workshops. As you'll remember from previous presentations or from experience, workshops used to be in the back of the room. They stayed set up all the time. The wall was closed. They reduced the room capacity because council business meetings were in the front of the room. Staff sat, further up than they do now. And the workshop capacity was greatly reduced because it was a smaller room. You could maybe fit about 20, 25 people or so back in the area. So the presentation of these options is based on the idea we don't want to go back to that because of the reduced capacity for the residents to be here. So we came up with two options. One of them is setting up council at the front of the room. There's two different table layouts we toyed with. The first one is this rectangular option. If you take note of where it ends in relation to this presentation table here, you'll see how much further out the next layout option comes. This gives enough seating capacity for all of staff and city council to sit up front. As far as microphones go in the floor, there are about 4 jacks for microphones to plug into. We would need about 9 to 10 for council and staff. So we would have to explore different options for audio or maybe a wireless solution. With this setup, we would probably have less potential issues with audio because of the way the room is set up. Currently with council at the front and audio projected to the back. And again, if we choose to go back with the V-shaped tables, you'll see how much further out they stick than the rectangular ones. So as far as security goes, the chairs and the podium would have to move back about halfway to accommodate for the table, reducing the room to about half capacity of what it is now. So from a security recommendation, this is not as secure as where you're at right now. There would be less options for both council and the deputies to respond to an incident. So just keep notice of that. The second option we had was going back to the back of the room where a workshop was before. This is how the table was previously set up in a V formation. We would keep the wall open. Aside from setting up the tables and tearing them down for each meeting, staff would also have to turn around the chairs to face the back of the room each meeting. There are no floor jacks back there for microphones, so we'd have to also explore options for wireless mics back there. But because of the way the room is set up to have audio broadcast to the back of the room, there may be more interference from feedback if we try to do that sort of setup. From a security recommendation, we were asked that if we could turn the tables so that the mayor was sitting on the opposite wall from what you see in the picture. Also, they don't want anyone's backs to the residents. So again, tables and chairs have to be moved back to make more room. And from a security perspective, this was the least preferred option because it would give the least options to both staff and deputies in case an incident occurred. For both options, we're looking at between 3 to 3.5 hours for 2 employees to set up, rearrange the chairs and the tables for each workshop once a month. The audio and technology equipment will need to be, again, set up and tore down for each meeting. And also, staff would have to determine the best microphone solution based on which layout council decided to go with. So with that, I welcome your questions and direction.
So, Doug, if we stay the way we are now, does that eliminate the extra staff hours and all of that, or not?
It would, because there would be no change to what we're doing right now. Yes,
But
sir.
is there time spent to set up this room before every meeting?
They come in and they straighten things out, make sure that there's been no change of a previous event.
But it's not a significant...
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm in favor of staying where we're at. We've got the cameras, the audio works fine. I mean, I'd like to see this plexiglass come down, make it a little more comfortable.
So you're not at,
I'm in favor of this.
You're not at all sensitive to my neck having to go left and right on a pivot?
No, not in the least. It's the least you can do.
Okay. Councilman?
I believe it's a waste of time and money. We have a setup that works and works well.
Councilman?
I think that's totally fair, and I would hate to burden any staff with kind of the unnecessary,
So
procedures.
I agree with all of you. I think at one time, there was a thought, a dream, that it would inspire more communication, but I think that we have found a level of collaboration that affords us everything that we had thought about when we were going through this. So it would be I would agree with my fellow councilman that the present setup is the most effective, efficient, and that's what we would like to stay with.
Understood. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Moving along, we now move to the final public participation of the workshop today. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a public comment at this time?
Alan Lowe, thank you very much for moving forward with the saltwater canal dredging and bringing it to the strategic planning. There was a question earlier on a couple of things that were brought forward that might change the cost of things, and one of them is perhaps altering the depths of the canals. I'm not an expert on the canal system at all. I have, however, studied and been talking to a lot of experts that do know what's going on. If we lower the depth of the canals below the level of the mouth of the canals into the intercoastals, because all of our 3 canal systems are dead end, we don't have a flow-through system. So if our canals are lower than the intake at the intercoastal, we end up with an anaerobic situation or a lack of oxygen situation at the bottom of the canals, which over time everything down there will die. But on top of that, you'll have the rotten sulfur smell and all of that there will be no way to stop it. Because we don't have a flow-through system, we have, I forget what the technical word for it was, but we have a temperature inversion that allows the cooler water to sink, the warmer water, and we have a turnover that way. But in doing that, it flows in and out slightly through the mouth at the intercoastal. And again, if our depth inside our canal system is deeper than the mouth at the intercoastal, we don't have that transfer. And we'll end up with an anaerobic situation. So you might want to get experts, I'm not an expert, but get an expert opinion on that and perhaps strike that from the plan at lowering the depths. It would potentially end up being a problem. The other thing is, hopefully in order to help keep the costs down, would council be amenable to maybe a volunteer citizens advisory group? Because I do know other experts that are in the area here that live in Flagler County that are willing to donate information and time, but not necessarily have to go through the process of bidding and so forth, just to donate time. So if council would be amenable to a citizen advisory group, I would like to be able to set that up and bring it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Anyone else for public comment?
Mark Lewis. Again, very happy to see Mr. Coates' presentation on dredging the saltwater canals. Happy to hear that the target is to restore them to their original depths. And a comment was made from the dais that perhaps we need to survey the boats that are here. I've been in Palm Coast only for 6 years, and I've watched the number of deep draft vessels disappear from the landscape here in our canal system simply because it was not navigable. So restoring our canals to the original depths seems to make great sense to me. I greatly applaud all the work that's been done so far. Very happy to see that this is moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Gary Kunis, C-section.
When Levitt built this, he stated that he would maintain the canals at mean low water at 7 feet. All right? The main canals would be 12 feet, mean low water meaning the lowest tide. If that's maintained 7 and 12, it would be higher than the intercoastal, which would not have a problem. It would also allow the large sailboats, the larger power boats to be getting in and out, especially during high tide, because that adds another 2 feet to that, possibly, depending on storms and so forth and so on. So it was originally set for 7 feet. Now, in many places, we're at 3 and 4 at low tide, in some places less. So we can maintain 7 feet, finger canals, 12 in the main canal entries, we'd be good to go.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Sean Costello. I live here in Palm Coast. How you guys doing? I just have a few things. One, I'm really glad to see that the pavement management thing is still ongoing and stuff. You know, I really am. It's helpful and stuff. But when it was started, it was not just to look at just resurfacing. It was also to come up with a plan to do other treatments besides just resurfacing our roadways, so that way you can get a longer life and be able to use your money, you know, in a more efficient manner. But I'm really, really happy that you guys are continuing it, and I'm happy to see Carl moving forward and stuff. We also need to look at like making some roadway improvements, mainly turn lane type stuff. I know we need to do some turn lane extensions and stuff, because unfortunately with the buildup in traffic, our turn lanes are kind of short and stuff. So and it's a two-pronged issue in that it slows down progression through the corridors, but then it also creates a safety issue as well. You know, I've done these things before, and you know, it's just something that needs to be looked at and stuff. Specifically, I could tell you ones that affect me the most are Rimfire and Belterre, that northbound left. I've seen multiple rear ends just because, you know, there was a whole stack of traffic and stuff that showed up and somebody wasn't paying attention. And so between that, the southbound left at Royal Palms as well. Let me see. Also, Palm Coast Parkway and Old Kings Road, when that was, with that intersection being built up now and stuff, can somebody please take a look at it, as far as it's not supposed to be split phase. It was built so that way it doesn't run split phase, so cars can actually run at the same time. You guys need to start looking at site distance issues at many of your unsignalized intersections, because where you guys have trees and stuff like that, the trees are starting to grow up more, so site distance is starting to become harder to negotiate. And then finally, Flagler County has 2 really cool mountain bike trails and stuff, and it would be great if maybe we built like a little area and stuff similar to what they have at River Bend Nature Park in Ormond Beach. So, thank you guys.
Very good. Thank you for your comment. Anyone else like to make public comment? Yes, sir.
My name's Ron Murphy. I live in the C section. And I brought this up once before, but if we're going to be going forward with the dredging, I would like to see something to do with the spoils area, where we take the dredge material, put it in the spoils area. After, I think it's a 2-year wait you have to have, then require docks or areas without seawalls to pull from the spoils area, which would contribute to us reducing the cost. Right now, if we have a lot across the street from me just trucked in 40 truckloads of fill, okay? This coming out of these lots that don't have a seawall, have those places required to pull from the spoils lot to fill the lots before they go outside contractor to provide dirt back into the city. That is my comment.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comment. Anyone else in the audience like to make public comment at this time? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and open up to the dais for final comments from City Council today. Final comment?
Yeah, I had the privilege yesterday of going out to Avent Health and doing a tour on their regional simulation center. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to do that or not, but it was amazing. That technology for training future nurses and present staff is just mind-blowing. So I take it you all had a chance to go out? Yeah. That's fabulous, and that's all I wanted to alert you to.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councilman Finelli?
I hope to see a great turnout at Tunnels for Towers.
How many days left in the school year?
12 and a half.
12 and a half.
But who's counting?
Councilman? Nope, I have no comments for this meeting. I thank you.
Very good. I thank everyone that presented today and the audience that may have been listening virtually. So please do turn out for our event this Saturday, and thank you all. Hold on just a minute. Next we have comments from the city attorney.
I have none.
Very good. Comments from the city manager.
I'll follow that with I have none.
I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.